right, welcome back, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. We are here to talk about the ultimate guide on cards you are going to want to pull in sealed Star Wars Unlimited. Now, this is not going to be a hyper-competitive analysis. We're just going to talk about some of the good cards in each slot for, 1 resource, 2 resource, 3 resource. So this is going to be a longer video, but we're going to segment it up into different chapters on YouTube so you can kind of parse through whichever values you're most interested in. But we're here on the StarWarsUnlimited.com website, the official one where you can build decks, you can look through cards, and we are going to have a lot of fun just going through and taking a peek at what cards look like and what some of the big hits are in sealed, because we're going to be seeing a lot of sealed events very soon, and it's kind of nice to know what to expect and be able to look at a card and go, this is good for this reason. So we're not going to go over every single card. That would take forever. We're just going to go and look at some of the highlights in each section and talk a little bit about why these cards might be something you want to use in a sealed event, or why you might not want to use them in a sealed event. So let's look at the 1-drops here, and let's first start off with, we talked about these cards earlier, but Resilient is a very potent card, mostly because for 1 resource, you get 3 additional HP. Now, I wouldn't say this is like the best card ever. Obviously, those are going to be much higher in the list, but for 1 resource, getting 3 HP is not bad. Depending on the leader that you're using, this can really extend the health of your units. If you're playing with Krennic, he gives all of your damaged units +1/+0, so giving yourself an additional +3 HP means units are going to live longer, and they're going to get that attack buff from Krennic. This is just really good to keep your aggressive, maybe space units online. So say you get the A-Wing, and that's a 1/3 with Raid 2. We'll talk about it later. But when you attack with that unit, you get 3 damage into anything. So putting Resilient on top of that turns it into a 1/6 on defense and a 3/6 on offense. So I think Resilient is a good card. You want to combo it with things that can be aggressive or things that have a big amount of HP. But yeah, I like this card a lot. I think it's very potent, especially in sealed where there's not a ton of removal, so you kind of have to kill or defeat units the old-fashioned way by attacking, and being able to extend your life is really, really good. Moment of Peace, I just like this card because for 1 resource you get a shield. I don't know if I would like auto slam draft this into my deck, but if I have an extra slot, which generally you do whenever you're doing sealed or draft, you're building a 30 card deck, you usually have like 25 to 28 cards that are like really, really powerful, and then you're trying to fill in those final last couple of cards. Giving a shield token to a unit that can completely negate an entire attack, that can protect a unit from a lot of stuff. I mean, you can slap it on a big ender like the ATST, and that thing is going to be very difficult to take out. You can slap this on, it's shield token to a unit, so you can also put it on your leader. Sometimes that matters. Sometimes it doesn't, but giving a shield token on demand for 1 resource, I think is very good. Also, this card is not locked to heroism or villainy, so you can play it in any kind of deck. Again, this isn't like my favorite auto slam ever, but I think it's a good like fill in the gap card. Or if you're playing in Luke, because you can play Luke in the pre-release, having a ton of shields, this one I would auto slam with Luke, because just being able to play bodies, shield them, is super annoying. And then if you can stack multiple shields or just, on demand go, cool, you attacked this unit, took off the shield, 1 resource, I put another shield back on, and then your opponent's just like frustrated. So Moment of Peace, useful, very, very fun. Repair, I think this card's very good. I believe that 3 damage is, very, very, very potent. If you're playing a 30 health base, that this card basically says, heal 10% of your base. That could be an entire turn. That could give you just the edge you need to get those units on the field and win a game. Healing 3 damage from a unit is also good. You can heal it from a leader, which is awesome. You can heal it from that unit you played Resilient on that gave it +0/+3. This has a lot of utility, and in a game that's slower, where there's not a significant amount of direct damage, everything has to attack manually. Being able to essentially negate an attack via 1 resource, that feels pretty good. I don't know if I would run more than 2 of these. It depends on your list. It really does. Like, you want to play a lot of units. You don't want to have a ton of spells, aka events, in your deck, because we're not playing a spell slinger game. Like, there's no leader that really like gains value off of events. Bosk does whenever you play an event. I think he deals 2 damage, but that's a big combo. That's a big ask. If there's a leader that said, you know, when you play event, draw a card, when you play an event, deal damage, then we might think about building Spellslinger decks where you're fielding a ton of events. But whenever you're building sealed or draft, you really want tons of bodies. So you want to make sure you're not just flooding your deck with events, although they're good, because you still need units to actively do something. So repair is very good, but you know, you don't want to put in, you know, 3 repairs, 3 moments of peace, 3 resilience. That's 9 out of your 30. That's like a third of the deck. So you want to be careful and make sure that you're prioritizing which cards go where. Okay, moving along, let's talk about Rebel Assault. I think this card is really fun. Now, this is locked into Heroism, so you're probably not going to play any villain cards, honestly, if you're running this, but Rebel Assault allows you to what we call Action Sheet from Destiny. So for 1 resource, you can attack with a Rebel unit. It gets +1/+0 for this attack. Then attack with another Rebel unit. It gets +1/+0 for this attack. This card can absolutely win you games. Rebel units generally have 2, 3, and 4 attack. And for 1 resource, not only can you attack with 2 units before your opponent can stop you, but they each get +1/+0. So if you're going straight for the base race. Also, another note, attack with a Rebel unit, it doesn't specify ground or space. So you can attack with an A-Wing in the space unit, the space arena, and then you can attack with a Rebel unit in the ground arena. And it doesn't specify leader or non-leader either. So you can do some really dumb things attacking with a, you know, unit in the, it's whatever arena you want. Like this combat trick is really nasty, because if your opponent isn't prepared, you can snipe a win really quickly. So if you look at your board state and you think about like an A-Wing that can attack for 3 damage to the base, and then if you think about, I mean, whatever fundamental Rebel unit you have on the ground, you know, let's say it's a 3/3. So you have a combined total of 6 damage to the base if they attacked separately. Using Rebel Assault for 1 resource, 1, very scary, 1 resource, you actually get to attack for 8 damage, because you'll swing with the A-Wing for 4 damage, and then you'll swing with the 3/3 in the ground for another 4 damage. You only have 30 health. 8 damage for 1 resource in this specific scenario, but 2 attacks out of nowhere. This card, you have to respect it. You have to fear it. If you're looking at your opponent's board state and they have, you know, enough damage to kill you with an additional +2, you've got to anticipate a Rebel Assault. Like, now, there are a couple things to think about when you're playing in your sealed events. This is an uncommon, so it's going to be a lot harder to find in a booster pack. You only get 6 booster packs, and you only get a certain number of uncommons per pack. If your opponent is playing in Villainy, they might run Rebel Assault, because you could play this for 3. Because if you're in green and Villainy, the heroism aspect penalty will only be 2, so this would cost 3. So very possible they could slam it in and that would be scary. But the reality is, if they're playing hero, it's very likely. So keep the board state low. Try as best as you can to not get, killed by this card. But I really believe Rebel Assault as an uncommon is a really powerful card. If you see this and you can build around green heroism with good synergy, I think it's well worth using this card as a build around. It's very, very good, and it can totally win games. All right, next up, there's really a lot of good cards, like, Protector's fine, Dispatcher's fine, Bale is fine. In Sealed, I think Bale can be good. That 2 willpower or 2 HP, I'm talking Lorcana speak here. 2 HP, it's pretty squishy. Now again, we've said this before, in sealed events, there's not a ton of direct removal. There's not a ton of direct damage. So the average body stays alive longer than in constructed. However, 2 HP is not very good. Now, if you threw a Resilient on Bale and made him a 1/5, that'd be a lot better. So, I mean, you could on turn 1 play a Bale, play a Resilient. Now you've got a 1/5 experience token generator, which is much, much scarier. But if you don't have that combo, and it's not likely that you will, because again, you're probably only going to see one Bale Organa, if you see any at all. But if you can protect him with some kind of upgrade that gives him more HP, this is a scary card. If you're just hard casting him at 1 as a 1/2, I mean, you could try. You could try. I'm not saying don't do it, but it's a risky play. But if you can build up his defenses, very scary card. All right, Vanguard Infantry, it's a 1/2, no big deal. Most of these cards here, they're good, but I'm not gonna go crazy over them because they give a unit 2/2 for this phase. If you have it and you need an extra slot because you only have 27 good cards, go for it. 2/2 is fine. It's slow. The only problem is you're projecting what you're going to do to your opponent, because for one action you're going to buff something and then you give them an opportunity to either crash into it or use removal. So it's just useful-ish but slow, and you kind of need the speed and surprise to kill your opponent. Death Star Stormtrooper, great-ish. So if you're playing like pure aggro, just slam it, tap it, go. A 1 drop for a 3/1 is scary. If your opponent swings into it, they're probably going to die. If they don't deal with it, this is an insanely efficient card. If you're playing in Tarkin, where he can give experience tokens to cards, then you can play the Death Star Stormtrooper and then turn him into a 4/2 with the experience token. And again, if your opponent plays something in, say, the space arena, then you could slam the Death Star Stormtrooper in the ground arena and start putting pressure on. I think this is a perfectly fine card. It's like mid, like 5 out of 10. It depends on the deck. It depends on a lot of different things, but I mean, you want good 1-drops in your deck. You need stuff to play turn 1. So you want 1-drops and 2-drops, so that way when you take your first turn, you have something to do. And this is perfectly fine. I think he's good. And if you have one, go for it. If you pull like 2 or 3 of these, yeah. And you're playing obviously in villain aggression, like go for it. 3/1s are nuts. If you can get 2 of these on turn 1, that's really scary. I'm not saying it'll happen, but sometimes it does. And sitting across from 2 3/1s, which is 6 damage, staring me straight at the face, does not feel good. If your opponent is playing Vader, like the leader, the one that can deal 1 damage, probably should not play these unless you just want to soak the action / resource they have to pay for Vader's ability. But yeah, there are some matchups where this doesn't work super well. But I mean, it's a perfectly fine 1-drop. I like it. All right, moving along, let's take a look at Force Lightning. I mean, let's talk about this for 1 split second. If you happen to pull Force Lightning, this is a tricky card to play. So it says choose a unit, it loses all abilities for this phase. Then if you control a Force unit, Pay any number of resources, deal 2 damage to the chosen unit for each resource paid this way. So there's 2 things to think about if you pull this card. One, being able to blank out a unit can be good. The only thing that this does exceedingly, unfairly, and brutally well is turn Churret into a limp noodle. Like, he just turns into a wet paper towel, because Churret is like completely predicated on his ability to not like be defeated if his HP goes to 0. And for 1 resource, you can just blank that out and Churret becomes a vanilla. And that hurts Churret a lot. Like, this card is, you could just, write in Sharpie, sorry, Churret, my bad. The other half of the card is a requisition of you must have a force unit in play. And you could potentially hit that threshold. In red, you do have access to Vader. You have access to Palpatine, the unit. And then if you're playing green, you have Palpatine, the leader, who I believe is a force unit, should totally be. So there's a couple of force units in Villainy that can help proc the damage part. It's tricky because, like, logistically, out of 6 packs, you're probably only going to pull 1. If somehow you pull 2 and you just have like the God pack of God packs, maybe that's the universe telling you to play into red Vader, so that way you have a force unit. If you can build around this, go for it. But the honest reality is probably not. So let's talk about the, more like probable effect. Force Lightning can be good. I don't think you should build around it. Like, the odds of you pulling all the tools you need, the odds of you getting all the pieces to make this card as maximum potency as possible, I don't think is likely. So I would just recommend go with the flow. And if you pull it, maybe slot it in, but don't like pull Force Lightning and go, okay, cool, I'm building around Force Lightning, auto slam, let's go. I would just take it as it is. Let's see here. Spec Force, a 2/2 for 1, unit loses Sentinel, pretty good. Sacrifice, draw a card, then attack with a unit. For this attack, it's +2/+0, and then when this unit deals combat damage, defeat it. Like, it can be okay. It's fine. This is a perfectly fine card. You draw a card, so it replaces itself, then you attack +2/+0. This probably, I don't know. It's fine. I'm not gonna say like don't play it, but I'm not gonna say auto slam it in your deck. It gets the job done. I still like Rebel Assault. Now I can hear people saying, hey, Rebel Assault technically does the same thing and you draw a card. Kind of, sort of. So with Rebel Assault, you get to swing with 2 Rebel units. And then if a Rebel unit has an ability that triggers, you get that ability. So like if you look at Benthic 2 Tubes, it says on attack, another friendly aggression unit gains raid 2. So there are some combos here where you could actually, you play Rebel Assault, attack with a Rebel unit, Benthic 2 Tubes attacks, on attack, another friendly unit gains +2/+0. And then you give it to the unit that you're about to attack with the Rebel Assault. So Benthic swings for 3, and then say you have, a Bail Organa. So he'll swing for 1, plus another 2 from Benthic, plus another 1 from Rebel Assault. So he goes from a 1/2 to a 4/2. So you swing for 6 with this card. Here, you attack with 1 unit. So the +1/+0, both these cards combined give you a +2/+0. However, being able to attack with 2 units generally will give you more damage on the swing than 1 singular unit with +2/+0. Now, if you just have a nuts giant body, then that's negligible. The thing here is you draw the card, then attack, and then you have to defeat your own unit, which I don't think you want to do unless you're about to win the game. So this card, it's okay. I'm not dying over it. Benthic 2 Tubes. This card I love. I love this card. This is a personal opinion. This is not a meta, super hyper competitive, win the World Championship analysis. We're just having fun. We're trying to talk about cards that are fun, trying to talk about an event that's fun, and cards that can work really well synergistically. So 2 tubes, a 2/2 for 1 in red aggression, not locked behind heroism or villainy, and on attack, give another friendly red unit +2/+0. Oh, I'm sorry. I just realized in that example I gave, Bail Organa is not red. So, you know, let's say we used the Braggart, whatever. It just any unit that's red that fulfills this ability text. I'm sorry about that. Everyone in the comments is going to be like, hey, you can't do that. You're right. It's an example. My bad. Whoops. So yeah, about that, no worries. No harm, no foul. But yeah, Benthic 2 tubes. If you see this card, I do recommend trying to find a way to play it. If you don't have a lot of cards in red aggression, don't worry about it. If you do pull cards that this can proc off of, very, very good. Super, super good. Cantina Braggart. It's fine. It's a above curve body when attacking, a 2/3. On defense, it doesn't do anything. There you go. Infiltrator skill, okay, force throw, precision. Force throws, kind of okay, I guess. Probably not. Let's move on. ISB agent, sure. Chopper. This is a card I like to talk about. 1 drop, heroism, cunning in yellow. Let's look at the variant here. All right, so it's a 1/3. So stat line, it's okay. While you control another Spectre unit, this unit gains raid 1. You probably won't, maybe. If you're lucky, sure. Really what you want is the attack, the on-attack ability. So on attack, discard a card from the defending player's deck. If it's an event, exhaust a resource that player controls. As you may or may not know, I am the resident mill player of pretty much any trading card game I ever play. So Chopper to mills, discard a card from the defending player's deck. Powerful. You could discard something really important. There are very limited amounts of cards in terms of consistency when it comes to sealed events. So if an opponent has a card that you discard, that is probably the only copy of that card in their deck. If it's a uncommon or higher. Commons, you'll probably have a good amount of. You probably have like 1, 2, maybe even 3 copies. Uncommons, you probably have 1, maybe 2 copies of, and rares and legendaries, definitely, unless you pull some amazing luck, 1 copy of. So sealed events are usually very close to singleton, like commander style decks, where you're playing just piles of cards, as Greg would say. So being able to discard cards off the top of the deck in sealed is very potent, because if you hit a rare or a legendary, even an uncommon, that's probably the only version of that card they had. On top of that, if it's an event, you get to exhaust a resource. Being able to disrupt an opponent's economical state and just totally throw off their game plan is incredibly disgusting, especially early game, because most people are trying to play on curve where turn 1, you have a card that costs 1 or 2, turn 2, you have a card that costs 3, so on and so forth. So if you're able to, get the drop on your opponent and discard a card, and it's an event, now you tap down one of their resources. If they were planning on playing a 3-drop and they only have 2 resources left, they have to pivot. And if they don't have a 2-drop or a 1-drop, they've lost a turn. And even if they have a 2-drop or a 1-drop, you've severely hampered the efficiency of the turn, because now they can't play the card they wanted, they can't keep up tempo, and it may win you the game. I'm not saying Chopper is going to win you the game, but being able to discard a card is just good. If it's an event and you get to exhaust a resource, that is just cream of the crop, bonus, love, awesome, super good. So yeah, if you see a Chopper, I think he's worth building around. Again, you want to make sure you have synergy. So if you find a Chopper in your packs and then you sort all your cards and you only have 4 to 6 yellow cards, but you have 18 blue cards, probably you want to play blue. You might consider slotting Chopper in and paying the aspect tax. I don't know if I would do it. I don't know if Chopper is that good that he's worth 3 resources. But I guess if you just don't have anything better to slot in, Chopper's not a bad option. But yeah, if you're in yellow and heroism, go for Chopper. He's got really, really good stuff going for him. Another card we can talk about here is Greedo. And for very similar reasons, I guess, his stat line is the exact opposite. So 3 attack, 1 HP. So Greedo is 100% aggro. You want to swing him in, you want to slap either units in the face, slap the base, just punch things as hard as you can. And his ability is when Greedo is defeated, you may discard a card from your deck. If it is not a unit, so anything else that's not a unit, deal 2 damage to a ground unit. So Greedo is really powerful because he is a 3/1 for 1, just an amazing above curve stat line. This is good. The other thing is, when he's defeated, you can choose to eat a card from your deck, and if it's not a unit, deal 2 damage to deal 2 damage to a ground unit. That could be a leader, that could be anything in the ground arena. So there's 2 thoughts for Greedo. You can crash him into something bigger. So say you have, a unit that has 5 HP. You crash Greedo in, deal 3, Greedo dies. When he's defeated, you discard a card from your deck. If it's not a unit, you get to deal 2 damage to that thing you just crashed into, dealing a total of 5 damage, and you've got a unit off the field. Cool, super good. Greedo can also crash into a base, and then if a unit slams into Greedo, they may or may not live. So Greedo might 1-for-1 that unit. If Greedo doesn't, then you can again mill a card from your deck, and then if it's not a unit, you can deal 2 damage to the thing that attacked him and potentially, defeat them as well. Or if Greedo traded 1-for-1 and defeated the unit that, crashed into him, then you could use his ability to potentially, defeat another unit. Greedo has potential, but it is luck-based. You don't know what's on top of your deck. You're not sure what's going to happen. There's cards that can help you kind of control that, but 99% of the time, you have no idea what's going on. You just have to hope. But if you get the nuts and everything goes right, boom, Greedo dealt damage, Greedo took out a unit, and Greedo could potentially take out an additional unit. So I like Greedo. If I see this, I try and, put him in. Also, he is not locked behind heroism or villainy, so you can put him in any cunning deck, which gives Greedo a lot of flexibility, a lot of opportunity. And in sealed, a 3/1 for 1 with this kind of ability, I think is pretty good. Okay, moving along, Jawa Scavenger. The Saboteur is nice. I don't love it, but it could work. Mining Guild TIE Fighter. So this is an interesting one. I like this card because you can draw extra cards. I don't think this card is very good stat-wise, and it usually doesn't live very long if your opponent has any kind of space presence. But if your opponent didn't put any space units in their deck, or they just don't have any, a one resource for 1/2, totally fine. You can kind of plink down the opponent's base with 1 damage, 1 damage, 1 damage, and if they have no way to respond to you because they don't see their space unit, or they didn't put any space units, or they didn't draw any space units in their packs for some reason, take the damage. The thing I like is you can choose to pay 2 and draw a card. There's not a lot of card draw in Star Wars Unlimited. Now, you do get 2 cards per turn, which is really nice. But, I mean, if you get this and you need an extra slot, go for it. Also, it is a space unit, and there's just not a ton. And for some reason, people don't tend to play space units. So I'm a big fan of finding any space units I can and trying to put them in the deck. So I have, maybe 3, 4, 5 space units in my deck, because most of the time you're fighting on the ground. 90% of your units are going to be ground based, but you don't want to have 0 presence in space, because the moment somebody puts an A-wing down and you have no way to stop it, you just lose. So if you find it, sure. If you don't, sure. I like it, but it's not like an auto slam. Smuggling Compartment, I don't love it. Like, it works, but I'm not totally crazy about it. Snapshot Reflexes. This is a combat trick. I like this card if I just don't have anything better to play. So this is, in Commander, we call it, like one of the 99. This isn't like an auto slam. This isn't an auto include. But if you need a couple extra cards, this does work. Giving you that +1/+1 can help you in trades where you are slightly larger than the thing you're attacking into. So you drop and defeat the unit you're attacking while you stay on the board. But again, I wouldn't just, you know, auto slam any of this in. Disarm. This actually is really annoying in limited. Like, this card is really frustrating, especially if the opponent, or like if you have a body, if you have a character, a unit, whatever space, and you've got 4 or less attack, and someone pops disarm on you, and now that unit is basically 0 and whatever HP. Super annoying. Super annoying. This card I do like. It is slow because you don't get to attack. You don't get to do anything. You just -4, -0 somebody's, you know, biggest, scariest thing. If you find it, I would use it. I wouldn't put like 4 of these in if you happen to pull them, but like 1 or 2 can definitely slow a turn down where you can definitely take advantage. So disarm, it's good. It's annoying. It's very annoying. But don't put in like too many of these because you don't want to clog your deck up with -4, -0 combat tricks. It's goodish. Shoot first. We actually talked about this on one of our review videos talking about combat tricks. So this is a great card. You attack with a unit, it gets +1/+0, but you get first strike. So you deal your combat damage before the defender does anything. If you find this card and you're in yellow, play it. This is a great card. You can get a lot of sneaky attacks off where you trade and the opponent doesn't get to take out your unit. So very powerful, very useful. Absolutely go for it. LN TIE Fighter, super functional. I'm pretty sure this comes in the starter deck though. No, it's R2D that's in the starter. Yeah. So if you see a TIE Fighter, go for it. Again, space unit. I love space units. Also, this hyperspace is beautiful. This is just a really powerful space unit. Super powerful. It's a 1 cost, you deal 2 damage. If you're in Tarkin, again, because it's an Imperial, you can turn it into a 3/2. You can keep growing this over time. So any of these small bodies that are like a 1-drop or a 2-drop, you can use Tarkin to make them really big over time if the opponent doesn't do anything. And again, generally for some reason, people just don't have a lot of space options. So if you can slap down a TIE Fighter and then pump it up with Tarkin, ew. Or if you get 2 TIE Fighters and you can play both of them on turn 1, ew. Very gross. Very gross. Also, they are villainy only, so you can put them into any villainy deck. Any of the 4 aspects this can slot into. So the versatility, the low cost, and the fact that it's a pretty decent space unit for turn 1 or turn 2 makes it a great card to put into your deck. Now, if you pull this on like turn 8, maybe, I don't know, probably not. But early game, yeah, absolutely a very good card. All right, Confiscate. It gets the job done. Defeating an upgrade for 1, it's okay. This is more of a utility card. So again, if you're in the 99 and you need 1 more card to slot in, you've got 25, 27 cards, and you have, 3 slots. This isn't a bad one. You can resource the card, obviously, if you don't need it. There are some upgrades that can be pretty scary. The lightsabers are horrific if your opponent gets one. Upgrades are pretty annoying depending on which upgrades you're looking at. So it's okay. I guess I don't know. This isn't the first thing I would slap into my deck out of the neutral cards, but it could work, maybe. I would, if I pulled this and I just didn't have anything better, I'd put it in, but I wouldn't prioritize this in your sealed deck, honestly. Restock, I've heard people talking about this on, Reddit and Twitter, Facebook, Discord, YouTube, you name it. This might be a card you can sideboard in later. Usually sealed events, you can use any card you pull and slot things in and out. The only reason I would say that is because 30 cards are small. Depending on the deck you're playing, or if you happen to come across a mill deck, being able to put 4 cards into your bottom of your deck in a random order is not good in constructed. It's not particularly great in sealed. However, I did shout out to D House from Unplayable at the Star Wars Unlimited event that FFG hosted at the Mall of America. He actually milled me to death because I was drawing so many cards with Palpatine's ability, and I actually would have loved a restock to not kill myself by accident. So there are scenarios where you could potentially mill yourself if you're drawing too many cards, or if someone has the legendary Vigilance card and they mill you for 6, that can really hurt in sealed. So restock is very much a tech card. I wouldn't frontline it, but for some reason, if people are talking about their decks and someone's like, oh, hey, I pulled, a Vigilance, or maybe they pulled somehow 2 Vigilance, 2 legendary of the same card in a sealed pool, for whatever reason, maybe you put restock in just in case they want to, mess with the cards in your deck. Also, you've got things like Chopper. There's other cards that can, discard cards from your deck. So I don't think restock is the best, but depending on your meta, depending on what's going on in your local event, it could be something worth putting in. But it's probably not, if we're really honest. Like, the average person isn't going to mill themselves like I did, and then they're probably not going to run into units and abilities discarding cards from your deck. So yeah, that's my take on restock. Maybe, but probably not. So that's our take on the 1-drops. Let's move on to the 2-drops here and see what's good. There's a lot more. So we're going to start speeding up and kind of going through these quickly. Okay, so let's talk about the 2-drops in sealed. Again, we're going to go through these a little bit quicker and just kind of focus on the highlights of these, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. cost cards, because there's a lot of good cards. And generally your 2, 3, and 4 cost cards are really where you want to build around, because if you can stay on curve and play cards turn 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and keep your opponent off tempo and just dominate with really efficient cards, you're probably going to win. So the first card I like here is the Restored Arc 170. The only reason I like this card is because it's a space unit with Restore 1. If your opponent doesn't hit a A-Wing, this card can just be really obnoxious. 2, 3, the stats are fine. Like, it's really the Restore that I like, because if they have no way to answer this, you can just restore. And Restore 1 may not seem like a lot, but if you can get Restore 1 off 2, 3 times, that's long enough that you could probably stall the game out, and long enough to at least give yourself a little bit of breathing room. This is not the best card ever, but if you see 2 of these, I think it's worth putting 2 of these in your deck if you're running blue heroism. Just because, again, space units are very powerful. 2/3's not bad. It doesn't win many fights, but if you can slam it into a base, Restore 1, it just diminishes the amount of damage your opponent has done, and it extends the health of your base. So instead of a 30 health base, you have a 31 health base, or a 32 health base, or so on and so forth. So if you can extend the health of your base longer, then that gives you more opportunities to play units, more opportunities to play abilities, more opportunities to win the game. So I like it. I think it's useful. And if you pull multiples, go for it. Guardian of the Wills. This one people have talked about. I'm not super hot on it. It's a 2/2 for 2, so the stat line is fine. It's a perfectly, average stat line. The first upgrade you play on this unit each round costs 1 less. Unless you actually have, upgrades, I don't think you're going to get much value out of the ability. It's a good 2/2 for 2. Like, it's just a really on average body. And if you're in blue vigilance, like, sure, I'm not saying this is bad, I'm not saying this is good, but if you need bodies, like, it's perfectly fine. It's a 2/2 for 2. It's on curve, it gets the job done. Go for it. It is a force unit, so you can proc force abilities off of this, so that can be powerful. But the upgrade thing, it maybe, probably not. Like, it depends on how many upgrades you pull. But yeah, an on curve 2/2 body, like, if you need it, if you need bodies and you just, you know, are trying to fill in those extra cards, go for it. Otherwise, you know, we're gonna let this one be. Okay, I like Regional Governor, and I'm a control player, so I'll just say that up front. This is not for everyone. I like the Regional Governor because if you know the card pool and you know the colors your opponent is in, you could block them out from playing something really scary. So again, this one is tricky because it comes with game knowledge, and you have to take a good guess, unless you're playing Thrawn and you can actually see the top card of their deck, or maybe if you're playing in Villainy and you play the Probe Droid and you can see what's in their hand. Generally, you're going to guess whenever you play this card, but you name a card. While this unit is in play, opponents can't play the named card. So you could say, you know, the A-Wing, you know, if they're playing in red, you could say, you know, open fire. There's a lot of different things you could say when you name a card that could disrupt your game plans. You could say Rebel Assault. We talked about that one drop. If you're like, man, if they play Rebel Assault, I just lose the game. You could play Regional Governor, declare Rebel Assault, and if they have it, you locked them out. If they don't have it, nothing happens. So I would say this is a very niche card. It can give you a little bit of an edge. If you're in blue, play it. If you're trying to find a space for this, I wouldn't worry about it. But Regional Governor could potentially be pretty good. Let's see, Devotion, Lecture Staff. Entrenched. Okay, so this is a card we also talked about on our video when we had our pre-release tips. So I like Entrenched a lot because you can attach this to an enemy unit and they can't attack your base. So if you're just staring down a really scary, massive unit that you just can't deal with, you can entrench them and they can no longer deal damage to your base. They can still swing into your units in the space or ground arena, but they can't deal direct damage and, you know, cost you the game. So as an uncommon, I like this a lot because you can use it offensively to boost your things. And if you have a, you know, if you're playing Villainy, or, I mean, if you're playing anything that has Overwhelm, you could still entrench them. They can only attack units, but the Overwhelm additional, aka trample damage, goes to the base still. So you can use this to kind of cheese damage into a base and get rid of opposing units. You have to pick and choose. But I like this card. If I see it and I'm playing in blue, which I'm generally trying to do, I like putting Entrenched in. It just feels really good. And at 2 resources with no heroism or villainy penalty, it just slots in really, really nicely into decks. And if you ever see Entrenched, you generally only see one, and that's probably the only one you'll ever need. If you can hit it, great. If you don't, it's not a big deal, but it's a good tool to use. Admiral Piet, I actually had this used against me in Sealed at the FFG event. This is pretty annoying. It's not, this one's tricky. So if you're going to play Sealed, you want to go in knowing that you're very likely going to be playing a longer game. And you probably will get 2 cards that cost 6 or more. The big thing to note is Admiral Piet combos really, really well with green because you can ramp. So generally, if green has like super laser tech, you know, DJ turbo laser or resupply, any kind of card ability that allows them to cheat additional resources in before, the standard resourcing phase. Just because this card says, units that cost 6 or more doesn't mean you're actually playing them on curve when you would naturally have 6 resources. You might be able to get 6 drops out a turn or 2 earlier, depending on which ramping abilities you pulled in your 6 packs. So if you can get the ramp package online, Admiral Piet can actually get you some insane value where on, the turn, because you start with 2 resources at the start of the game. So technically it would be turn 4 that you would have 6 resources at the end of that turn. So turn 5 is when you can really utilize them. Piet can really, with the right combo, start going off on a turn or 2 earlier. And at that point, not only are you playing bigger bodies faster, but they have ambush, which means you get to play them and you get to attack with them into an opponent's unit. So Admiral Piet by himself, not great. Admiral Piet with ramping abilities, turbo laser, resupply, if you get the command card, like the legendary double green, pretty scary. You probably don't want to play double aspects in sealed. You want access to that other color, but you could play it for 6 if you wanted to, I guess. I don't think you should. But Admiral Piet can be really scary in the right deck. But if you only have Admiral Piet, nothing else to build around him, he's okay. If you can fit him in, go for it. But this is not like an auto slam best card 10 out of 10. But I do want people to be aware, if you could build around this, very scary, very, very good. All right, moving along, let's talk about probably one of the best 2-cost hero cards in the game. Just flat vanilla. This is a stat monster. Battlefield Marine, 2-cost, 3/3. This card is really good. There's not much to say other than and it's a common, if you can find this and go into Green Heroism, you should absolutely play this card. He gets the job done. A 3/3, he could trade into so many things. Obviously not the 3/1s like Greedo or Stormtrooper, but if you looked at a lot of these standard cards we're looking at, they're like, 2/3, 1/4, 2/2. There's a lot of trades where this Battlefield Marine wins. It's a 2-cost, so you can play it on turn 1. It's a lot of pressure on the board, and it's just flat stats, just good flat stats. I like this card. You'll hear from a lot of different people that this card is very functional. It's very good. So yeah, if you see a Battlefield Marine and you're in green hero, go for it. Super, super good. Next up, let's talk about Patrolling Viewing. I like this card because it replaces itself. It's a very, very easy card to play. You play a space unit, you get a 1/1 in the air, you draw a card. It's just super good. You get to see more things. You have a body. Nothing wrong with it. Also, it's not locked behind hero or villain, so you can play it in any green list. If you see it and you're playing green, I would absolutely go for it. Academy Training. This one I like a lot. I don't think it's the best card, but I like it in the 99, where if I'm trying to slot in a couple extra cards because I've built my deck, but I need some filler, I think Academy Training is a perfectly fine filler. It's a 2 for 2. It's average. So if you see it and you have some space, go for it. Moving along, here's a card I do like quite a bit. So if you're playing in a trooper list or you're playing in aggression villainy, this card's kind of scary. So 2 resources for a 2/3. While attacking a damaged unit, this unit gains +2/+0 and gains Overwhelm. Overwhelm is good. The +2/+0 is what's really nice because this turns into a 4/3 when attacking a damaged unit. And guess what, leader? You get to play in red villain, Darth Vader. And guess what he does when you play a villainy card? You can ping something for 1 damage. Oh, it's like they thought about this combo. So yeah, if you're playing in Vader red, this card works so incredibly well because you can play this card. If you have an extra resource, which you want to, you activate Vader's ability, you ping a unit, you ping the base for 1 damage. Now you set up your First Legion Snowtrooper to swing into whatever that damage thing is. You're going to be attacking as a 4/3, and then if there's any additional damage, it goes into their base. This turns the 2-drop Snowtrooper into a monster, and a 4/3 for 2. Ooh, really, really nice. Really, really powerful. If you're playing him anywhere else, he's fine. Like, it's a 2/3 for 2. It's not bad. But yeah, if you're playing in Villainy with red aggression, you're probably playing Vader, and you get so much value out of that combo. It's kind of silly. So yeah, First Legion Snowtrooper with Vader, absolutely great. Go for it. Moving along, these cards are great, super fun. This is another card I've talked about quite a bit. Green Squadron A-Wing. Just an insanely good card. So 2 resources, aggression, heroism, 1/3, raid 2. So when Green Squadron A-Wing attacks, it is a 3/3, 3 attack. So the raid 2 procs when you attack. When being attacked on defense, it is a 1/3. I mean, you got to go fast, go zoom zoom, big speed. It's a great card. There's really not terribly much to say. It's a very aggressive, very potent, very good early opening card, because if you slam this down turn 1 and your opponent doesn't have a space unit, you got 3 damage for free. And if they play a space unit on turn 2 and you get the initiative, you got 6 damage out of a 2-cost card before they can attack you. I mean, value. If they don't play a space unit, you just keep tapping that Green Squadron A-Wing sideways, 3 damage, 3 damage, 3 damage. It adds up really, really fast. So yeah, this is one, if you're in Heroism Red, I would auto slam this as fast as you can, because it is a fantastic opening and, you know, turn 3/4 card. Like, this card is just good early game. If you get to like turn, you know, whatever, say 7 or 8, maybe, but you really want this online as early as you can to just put pressure on your opponent quickly. All right, Sabine Wren, let's talk about this one. So 2 resources, heroism and aggression, 2/3. Top ability, we're not even going to worry about that. It's probably never going to go off. The second ability is really what we want. On attack, you may deal 1 damage to the defender or to a base. So Sabine Wren, while attacking, can essentially become a 3/3. You can deal 1 damage to the thing you're attacking if it's a unit, or you can deal it to a base. So technically she's on curve, a 3/3 when attacking. It depends on how you look at the stats. Like, purely she's a 2/3, but on offense she's a 3/3. I like Sabine Wren. I think she's a very potent card. Unlimited, or not unlimited, but uncommon, so you're not going to see a ton of her. But if you're playing in red and you're playing hero, I would totally slam her into the deck. I think she's a great character. She's above the curve because, you know, she would be a 3/3 if you accounted for everything, but she's 2 for a 2/3. So great turn 1 body, very oppressive if you can keep her alive. If you happen to somehow have the 3 aspects among other friendly units, okay. I mean, it's possible. I don't know. Like, I wouldn't worry about it because it has to be among other friendly units. It doesn't count hers. So you're going to have 2 other friendly units on board, and they're going to have heroism and the 2 other colors that you're running. So it's possible. Anyways, I don't worry about it. I don't think that's very scary. I mean, if it works, great. If not, whatever. But a 2-drop for a 2/3 on attack 3/3, great. It's above curve. I like it. If you see it, I would play it. Carabas, I'm not a fan. Jeddah, okay. Partisan Insurgent, yeah. I mean, if you're going straight into like red aggro, a lot of people are gunning for Sabine. She's a very, very powerful leader in sealed. So if you see this and you're running Sabine, yeah, you probably take it. So while you control another red unit, this unit gains raid 2. So on attack, it's a 3/4. Yeah, if you see a couple of these and you're playing in Sabine, like, sure, this is absolutely fine because they can each proc each other. And then when you have Sabine out, it procs the Insurgent, yada, yada. But it's good. It's not great outside of red. If you're playing like if your primary color is blue or yellow or green and you have some red cards and then you have some Insurgents, like maybe, but this really wants to see tons of red. So if red is your primary color, go for it. If not, maybe not. I don't know. It depends on what you get. It's kind of iffy. Wolf's probably a like utility. Again, it's a rare, so you're probably only gonna see one. 2 resources for a 3/2 body. Saboteur is nice. When this unit attacks, ignore Sentinel and defeat the defender's shield. So you can use this to counter Luke and shield walls. But the when played on attack, bases can't be healed this phase. It's more of a tech thing. There's not a ton of healing in sealed, so that ability is probably not what you're excited about. The Saboteur is always online. It's more consistent, but again, he's probably in the 99. Like if you just need a card to slot in, you're playing in red aggression, like sure, go for it. Otherwise, maybe it's worth taking a pass on. We'll see. Okay, moving into yellow or cunning, a Bib. So this is an interesting unit. In constructed, he's really, really good, like super duper good because of his action, allowing you to play events at a reduction of 1 resource. In sealed, I still think he's good. I don't know if you're going to consistently be able to get the event discount the way you want it. So the reason why I say that is when you're playing in constructed, you can control the cards in your constructed deck. So you can really control that curve of here are events I want Bib to play on turn 3, turn 4, etc. So with the shielded ability, he's hard to take down because you have to deal damage to pop the shield. Then you have to deal 3 damage to actually defeat him as a unit. So early game, especially when you're playing only 1 thing per turn, when you only have 2 resources or 3 resources, it's unlikely he's going to get defeated until, maybe a turn or 2 later. So you'll have at least 1 opportunity to use his action. And if you're keeping your cost curve on action, like events low, where your actions are going to be, 3 cost, maybe 4 cost, that gives Bib an edge. In sealed, where you have 0 control over anything, you just open 6 packs and get what you get. The ability to play an action, like use his action to play an event for 1 less is great. The problem is you don't know what events you're going to get. So you don't know what they're going to cost. The other problem is you don't know if you're even going to draw them because you're not going to have consistency of saying, I want 3 of this event, 3 of that event, 2 of this event. You might hit like 1 event that you want, maybe 2 events that you want at 3 or 4 cost. So it makes it harder for Bib to combo with cards because the consistency doesn't exist. You're just praying that you have the Bib and the right cost card in the same hand. Will it happen? Maybe, but is it likely to happen? Probably not. So in terms of using his action, I wouldn't like bet on it. It could happen, but I don't think he's good for that specifically. I like him for shielded. Shielded is a very underwhelming or underappreciated ability in limited formats because you just look at that shield and go, oh man, I don't want to attack Bib. I'm not going to take any damage. Like one damage is not a lot. I'm not afraid of that. But do I really want to swing in, deal no damage, and take 1 in return? Or like if you're playing against opposite of a Vader, he just destroys shielded things because he just pokes them. But the average person probably isn't playing Vader, so you have to manually take that shield off, either with direct damage via an event or attacking. So it feels kind of bad having to swing 2 things to kill or defeat a Bib, but you don't want him to stay online because he can discount. So he's annoying, definitely an annoying card. If you're in Cunning and Villainy, I would put him in. I don't think he's a bad card, but he's not like the best card ever. But if you see him, like, go for it. I think he can present a really interesting opportunity just to annoy people. Let's see. Okay, Cartel Spacer. I also like this one as well. So it's a 2-cost villainy cunning card. 2 resources, 2 attack, 3 defense. When played, if you control another yellow, aka cunning unit, exhaust an enemy unit that costs 4 or less. This is a combo piece. If you can get the combo piece off and you're playing in a lot of yellow, Cartel Spacer is very good. Being able to exhaust things just keeps your tempo up and reduces your opponent's tempo. Things that cost 4 or less. There are a lot of things that are powerful that cost 4 or less that you can lock down and annoy your opponent. Bib is a great example. They can't use the action to play events. Bummer. I have a Greedo. No, he's exhausted. Bummer. So Cartel Spacer works well if you're playing tons of yellow. If you're slotting it in and it's your secondary color, I don't think Cartel Spacer is that good. But you know, if you've got nothing better to do, go for it. But yeah, if you're playing primary yellow villain, like, you know, you get Boba, go for it. I think Cartel Spacer can really get the job done. No Good to Me Dead. This is just a good card. Very functional as a control piece. Exhaust unit, they can't ready this round. Any unit, leaders included. This is a very, very good control piece. So yeah, if you see this and you're in yellow villain, I think it's a very good card to pull and slap in your deck. I wouldn't put like 3, maybe 2. 1 to 2 is probably fine. I don't think you're going to pull 3. I don't even think you're going to pull 2. But if you happen to hit 2, I think it's a very, very useful piece. Mostly because yellow doesn't have tons of like removal. They have Waylay, which can bounce a card, but it doesn't like defeat the card. So all of your tools generally revolve around exhaustion or bounce. So you know, if you're going heavy in the yellow package, this is one of your better AKA removal pieces, just because, again, you don't have direct damage. You don't have like targeted hard removal that says, you know, defeat a unit. You just have exhaust things, give yourself a shield, exhaust things they can't ready, or bounce a unit that goes back to the hand. So a good piece, use it if you find it. Let's see here. Spark of Rebellion. I'm biased. I like control. Look at an opponent's hand and discard a card from it. I don't think this is the best 2-cost card you could ever play in your deck, and you probably should play a unit. If we're being really honest, you want bodies on the field to present threats to your opponent. However, I do think this card can be useful maybe around, you know, mid-game, where your opponent might be setting up for a overwhelming barrage or a, you know, really scary 5 or 6 drop that you just don't want to deal with. But early game, I would probably prioritize playing, you know, an A-Wing or that Battlefield Marine or something, a chopper, anything, before trying to snipe a card out of your opponent's hand. If you just don't have anything good, like, go for it, use Spark of Rebellion. But really, you want early game to be bodies and then mid-range to start disrupting the opponent. But if you pull this card, like, yeah, I like it a lot, especially if you're in Heroism Yellow, which is a lot of fun. But yeah, this is a decent card, probably in the like 4 out of 10 if we were rating it of like power level efficiency, but it can be totally used. Crafty Smuggler, we talked about this one. I like this card a lot. Super annoying. Is it the best card ever? No. But is it really obnoxious to have a 2/2 with shield on it? Yes, absolutely. So this is a very, very good card, just as a utility card. If you can grab, you know, 2 of these and put them into your cunning deck, I think it's well worth it. Shielded on a 2/2 is very, very obnoxious. All right, Outer Rim Headhunter. This one requires a little bit of setup. So let's talk about this card for a split second here. Okay, so clearly we've got much better 2-drops that we've talked about. This is not the best card you'll ever see. However, if you're in yellow and you have 2 resources and this is in your hand, I think this is a good card. 1/3, not great stats. Raid 1, so when you attack, you're a 2/3. It's okay. The thing I like about Headhunter is the ability. On attack, if you control a leader unit, you may exhaust a non-leader unit. Going back to what I've been saying since we started this video, a lot of people just don't play space units. I don't know why. I do know that there may or may not be space units in your packs, but out of 6 packs, you should see at least one. In Sealed, I did play this, and I had my Krennic online, and people couldn't stop me from, like, first action, attack with the Outer Rim Headhunter right into the base, and then because I control the leader unit, I may exhaust a non-leader unit. The best thing about that ability is it doesn't specify a cost or a power or anything. It just says exhaust whatever you want that's not a leader. So if you can keep the space arena open, you can use removal, you can use, units to crash into your opponent's space units. Outer Rim Headhunter plus your leader unchecked is oppressive. Now again, I'm not saying this is the best card in the 2-drop slot. This is not. But if you pull this and you can find a way to combo it with your leader, depending on the leader, the amount of value you get out of being able to just tap down your opponent's biggest thing, really annoying. It disrupts the tempo of the game. It gives you an edge where, if they've got an ATST online, you're not taking all that damage with Overwhelm. If they have a Voltron unit where they've just slapped on a bunch of upgrades and it's just really ugly and really scary, cool. Headhunter can tap that down as well. It's definitely a combo piece. You have to build around. You have to be wise about it. But if you can get the combo off, very potent. I wouldn't auto slam this in your deck, but it is a pretty good 99 card if you just need an extra card to fill in that, 5th, 6th slot in your deck. But I would look at it. I would respect this card. And if you pull it, maybe see if there's an opportunity to utilize it. Otherwise, it's kind of meh. Kind of trash. All right, Pirate of the Starfighter. So this one I'm totally biased of because we got to spoil it on TCG Cast. This one is actually kind of interesting. So Pirate of the Starfighter is a 2-cost cunning, not locked behind heroism or villainy, so you can put it in whatever deck you want. It's a 2/4 with raid 1. So on attack, it's a 3/4. On defense, it's a 2/4. Its ability, when played, return a friendly non-leader unit to its owner's hand. This isn't uncommon. So as a stat monster, it's pretty good actually. It's above the curve. Let's be honest. It's a 2/4 on attack. It's a 3/4. So this can crash into an A-wing and survive. Which is good. It's very, very good. The trade-off is return a friendly non-leader unit to its owner's hand. So you're really not going to get this online turn 1 because you have to bounce something you already played on your field back to your hand. So why do I like this card? What makes it good? I actually don't like this card in the early game. I like this card in the mid to late game because in Pokemon, there's a card called Scoop Up. And that card was extremely powerful and it has this exact same ability. You return a Pokemon that's on your field to your hand. Why would I do that? Why would I take a card off of my own field when I'm trying to put units on my field? Great question, Tim. So the thing is, as you're playing the game, you're going to have damage build up on your characters. Using Pirate of the Starfighter, you can return a damage unit to your hand, which resets all that damage. So then you can replay that card fresh with no damage on it whatsoever. The other thing is when you play that card, you also trigger their when played ability, or if they have like an ambush ability, you can use it immediately. Or if they have, there's a lot of different abilities and effects that you want multiple, iterations of. So being able to use Pirate Starfighter to come down on the field, bounce one of your own bodies back to your hand, completely healing it, then replaying that card and activating its, when played ability is great. The Pirate Starfighter can help protect things that you want to keep alive by returning it to your hand. Pirate Starfighter can help trigger when played things. You can also do some cheeky stuff where, after you've readied up, you attack with a unit. Then you say you swing with a body and, defeat something or just deal damage to a base, whatever. Then your opponent takes an action. Then you play Pirate Starfighter, return that card to your hand. If that card is ambush, you can then, on another turn, play it, and trigger the ambush and attack immediately. So that one card essentially got to attack twice that turn. Ooh, very, very nice. So yeah, Pirated Starfighter opens up. It's a combo play card. And then once you've paid the cost of bouncing something, you have an above rate body, a 2/4 on defense, a 3/4 on offense for 2. Really, really good. So yeah, this is a card I very much like. It has some really interesting applications. If you're playing pure aggro, probably not this card. But if you're playing something closer to like mid-range where you're trying to get those bigger bodies out, I like this card a lot. I really, really like it with ambush cards because if you play it right, you can get a lot of value out of an ambush card by doing that combo I just explained. So yeah, Pirate Starfighter, I think it's good. You might not think it's good, and that's totally fine. A lot of people have different perspectives based on their play style. I like mid-range and I like control. I like trying to have above curve bodies. I like trying to have very powerful effects and being able to use my resources frequently. I can play aggro. I'm not an aggro player by chance or by heart. Like I like playing control. That's really where my heart lies. But I'm always looking for cards that allow me to have combos, combo extenders, options, and availability. And I think Pirate Starfighter is a great card to fill in those gaps. All right, next up, Asteroid Sanctuary. So we mentioned card abilities like this earlier in yellow. So 2 cost, it's just good. It's not behind a heroism or villainy lock, so you can put it in any of those decks. Exhaust an enemy unit, give a shield token to a friendly unit that costs 3 or less. Great piece of disruption. Yellow, again, doesn't really have direct damage or direct removal that just says, defeat a unit because of this card saying so. Yellow is all about exhaustion, disruption, slowing things down, bouncing them. But Asteroid Sanctuary is great because you get to exhaust a thing and you get to give a shield token to a friendly unit that costs 3 or less. And as we've seen before, shields are very, very, very annoying. So, is this card good? Yes. Should you play it? Yes, if you're in yellow. I think this is a fantastic card. Just like this one, I would auto slam in a deck just because exhausting a thing is great. Getting a shield on top of it is also great. So yeah, good card. If you find it, I would absolutely play it in yellow. Sneak Attack. Here's a funny one. So I'm just going to be upfront. I don't think this card's very good in sealed. I don't even know if it's good in constructed. There's probably a deck around it. We got to figure that out. So for 2 resources, play a unit from your hand. Cool. It costs 3 less to play and enter ready. Awesome. At the end of the regroup phase, defeat it. Okay. So how can you use this in your sealed event? I don't think you should. And here's why. I would rather have a body because it's cool, it's sexy, it's really fun to play a unit from your hand, and it costs 3 less and enters play ready, which means you can attack. So, you can play a 3 cost, a 2 cost, or a 1 cost for free. However, technically it's not free because you paid 2. So like the way the math is I would rather have a body on the board for 1 or 2 resources on turn 1 than play a body, attack with it, and then it disappears. I really want the pressure on my opponent because all this says is attack with something, probably deal like, 3 damage, 4 damage, and then it goes away. Way rather have the body. Don't get me wrong, this is a cool card, but if you're playing sealed and you actually like want to win and have some threats on the board, this doesn't present a threat. It just this is like one of those things you use to like win a game where you play a unit that you couldn't pay for and you put it on the board and your opponent has to have direct removal. Otherwise, if they don't, then you attack and win. But in sealed, I don't know. I don't like this card very much. Surprise Strike. This card I do love. I love it a lot because it's a combat trick, which we talked about in our video. So super easy, 2 resources, cunning, attack with a unit, it gets +3/+0 for this attack. This is just value town. You get to attack and you get a boost. Great. It can deal damage to a base, win a game. Awesome. You can crash into something and kill it. Awesome. Or defeat it is the technical term. Awesome. There's just no bad thing about this card. And it's a common. This one I do recommend if you're playing in yellow. Slam it into your deck. Probably 2, 3, maybe, probably 3. If you can find 3, I would say that's probably okay. But yeah, if you can get 1 or 2 of these, like, absolutely go for it. This card is El Nutso because your opponent just gets slapped with a +3/+0 out of nowhere. And if they're not paying attention, it can really swing the course of a game. Because again, remember, your base is 30 HP, or if you get a rare base, 25 HP. So on average, these cards we've been talking about usually have 2 to 3 attack. Using Surprise Strike to swing in for 5 or 6. Hey, your 25 health base is at 20 health or 19 health. Hey, your 30 health base is at 25 or 24. One card can do this can do a significant amount of damage and really put your tempo up, where now you're in the commanding lead. You've got tons of damage on the opponent, and they're going to have to catch up. So Surprise Strike, very good. Play it if you can. Love this card. Let's see. Snow Trooper Lieutenant. Hey, buddy. This is, again, part of those combat tricks we were talking about earlier, where it's a 2/2 for 2. When played, you may attack with a unit. If it's an Imperial unit, it gets +2/+0 for this attack. I love this card. It's just great. It fits really, really well into Vader decks because, hey, look, it's a villainy card. It costs very little. And when you play it, as long as you're playing a trooper list, you can attack with a unit. So you can attack with any unit, which is good. But if it's an Imperial unit, you get +2/+0. So putting the Snow Trooper Lieutenant plus the other Snow Trooper that gives you +2/+0 and Overwhelm when attacking a damaged unit. And if you happen to hit a Stormtrooper 3/1, this is the combo you want. You play the Stormtrooper on turn 1, you have a 3/1 just sitting there. Then next turn you play the Lieutenant and you attack with the Stormtrooper, and now it's a 5/1. Super scary. And then the next turn you start running the Snow Trooper that has +2/+0 Overwhelm with damage units. It just gets really nasty. So Snow Trooper Lieutenant, if you're playing in villainy, you've got Imperial units, take this card. Very, very good. If you're playing in villainy and you're not playing Imperial units for some reason, I don't know why, it's okay. It's an on-curve 2/2/2. And you can attack with a unit. So being able to slap this down and attack with any unit is perfectly fine. It's that action economy that you want. And it gets you closer to, claiming the initiative, which means you get to go first on a subsequent round and continue putting pressure on your opponent. Viper Probe Droid. This is really easy. I like this card because you get to look at an opponent's hand. Is it the best card ever? No. Is it very useful? It can be. 3/2 is pretty good. If you have it and it's in your deck, like if you have it, it's in your pool, I would use this as the 99. Like if you just need an extra slot filled, go for it. I would probably prioritize putting this in the deck because the 3/2 on turn 1 is fine. Like this can KO pretty much anything it comes across in the 1 and 2 drop range. And knowing what your opponent has in sealed is, I think, pretty nice because, again, card availability is limited. Consistency is limited. Being able to look and see, oh, they've got no card they can play right now on turn 2 or turn 3. That's good information to know. Or maybe they're sitting on, a big scary body, or maybe they're sitting on a piece of removal or something that they can play, when they have 4 or 5 resources. So you can kind of, know what's coming and play around it. I think Probe Droid is very useful. I would put it in a villainy deck pretty quick, but this isn't like the first card I would put, if that makes sense. It's probably like 6 out of 10. It's good, but there's other cards I would build around before looking at this. Like this isn't my first pick, auto slam, gotta have it. It's probably like wave 2. Like once I've got my priority cards, my big ones, I would start slotting in a Viper Probe Droid. Let's see here. Rebel Pathfinder, Saboteur is good. 2/3 for 2, perfectly fine. Underworld Thug, again, 2 cost, 2/3. you know, you probably want to play your neutral cards because they can fit into any deck. This is not one of my first picks. This is probably like wave 2 or wave 3 after I've picked my primary cards, my primary color. But if you have space and in the 99, like in your deck, go for it. Underworld Thug is perfectly acceptable as a filler card. All right, so those are the 2 drops. Let's take a look at the 3 cost cards. Let's scroll through here. We got quite a few. We got some bangers in here. This is where things get really spicy, and there's a lot of cards. So this one I'm gonna have to go even faster because there's so many good 3 drops. I don't want to take all day talking about them. Okay, starting with the 3 drops, I just want to say, if you've already watched this much of the episode, do us a favor. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, share this with all your friends. This is a really fun video, and we love talking about trading card games and Star Wars Unlimited content, and we would just appreciate your help helping to grow the channel as we go along. So, let's jump in real fast. Friendly shill plug right there. Death Trooper. I like this card a lot. It's a 3 cost, a 3/3. When played, deal 2 damage to a friendly ground unit, 2 damage to an enemy ground unit. Cool. So there's a lot of combo plays where you can attack with one of your units that's already damaged and close to death. And then if your opponent doesn't swing into it, you can use the Death Trooper to deal 2 damage to that already dying unit, and then deal 2 damage to an enemy unit that might, you know, defeat them. It might put them near defeat. Death Trooper has a lot of practical applications. It doesn't feel good dealing damage to yourself, but if you're able to kind of circumnavigate that cost by attacking with a unit that's about to die, and if your opponent doesn't kill it, then you kill it with your own Death Trooper, or you can use this ability on a shielded unit and you just pop your own shield and then you get 2 damage on an enemy. Death Trooper is just great because it's a on curve body. It's a 3/3/4/3, but it deals 2 damage, 2 direct damage to an enemy unit. That can pop a shield, that could defeat a unit, that could put a unit within range to be defeated with a smaller unit. Death Trooper just has interestingly a powerful utility, and it's a common. The other thing is the Death Trooper, surprisingly shocking, it's like they thought about this one too, combos extremely well with Krennic, because Krennic, all of your damaged units, if they have any amount of damage whatsoever, they get +1/+0. So you don't mind dealing damage to your stuff because now it affects the combat math where your things are bigger than they were before. So Death Trooper can empower Krennic decks by damaging yourself. Now your thing is bigger. Dealing damage to your opponent. Now their unit is defeated. And you just have a really good 3/3 body. Great. Del Meeko, sure. I'm not like in love with it. It's okay, but Power of the Dark Side. I am hot on this card because, again, you can, if you're in blue or red or blue-red, if you're playing this is a very potent card. So an opponent chooses a unit they control, defeat that unit. So your opponent gets to pick a unit. Why is this good? This card sucks. I don't want my opponent to pick a unit. That's fair. There are ways to keep their unit count down. So you can use direct damage, you can use removal, you can use the traditional attacking to pick off all their stuff. And now they're sitting on 1 or 2 really powerful, high value units. Play Power of the Dark Side, and they have to defeat one of them. You don't get to pick which one, but they still have to eat a unit using this ability. So I like it a lot. Unfortunately, as an uncommon, it's very tricky to pull. Uncommons, I feel, are very similar to rares. You just don't see more than one, if you even see one at all. So if you see Power of the Dark Side and you're in blue villain, I think it's good. It's not perfect, and it does need some setup. But if in the early game you can crash into all their stuff and then say you're playing a Sabine against a Sabine deck and you're able to keep their board pretty thin, and then they deploy Sabine and that's all they're sitting on. Power of the Dark Side is great against heroes because if they don't have anything but the hero, boink, you don't have your hero anymore. So it's a situational card. I like it. I think it's playable, but not like, 10 out of 10 auto slam. It's a very useful card. Let's see. Yoda. Love this card. Restore 2. Take my money. When defeated, choose any number of players. They each draw a card. You choose yourself, and you tell your opponent, sorry, another day perhaps. So yeah, super good. I think this is very playable, very, very potent. Restore 2, again, Restore is good. 2-4, great stats. If you're playing him with Luke, oh man, if you can get 4 resources and shield a Yoda, oh my gosh, he is so annoying based on the movement of my cursor. So annoying. Also, I really like the OP kit art for this foiled Yoda, if you can pull him. Not this art. This art kind of poo-poo. But yeah, Yoda. I love Yoda. He's one of my favorite characters in the history of Star Wars. I love his card. I don't like this art, but I think he's good. I think you could totally make it happen. Very, very spicy. Jedi lightsaber, sure, it works. Cloud City Wingguard, it's a Sentinel. Do it. Just do it. Sentinels are annoying. Annoying as all get out. 4 in the butt. 4 HP. Very, very hard to take down with a single attack in turns, 2 or 3, 4. Also, again, you can protect him with other cards we've talked about, or you could put an upgrade on him. You can make him resilient. You can make him just, big. So just anytime you can play a Sentinel, I think it's worth it, just because Sentinel is annoying and it disrupts your opponent. They have to attack into the Sentinel, which protects all of your other things, so they can go ham attacking the base while your opponent has to deal with this Cloud City Wingguard. So I like him a lot. Wilderness Fighter, I think it's fun. It's good in Krennic. Outside of that, Shielded's fine. I like this. I'm high on this card. So a 2-4 Shielded, very annoying. If you can get upgrades on this body and you make it bigger, very nasty. Otherwise, as is, probably in like the wave 2, wave 3 pick, it's in the 99. Like I don't auto slam this card in, but if I'm sitting around with 3 to 4 slots of cards, I just need to put something in. Fighter's good. Make an opening. Like this card a lot. Give a unit -2, -2. So Star Wars Limited does follow the Magic the Gathering rules. If your HP is 0 or less for some reason, your unit is defeated. So here's what you can do. You can make an opening. Haha, it's a joke. But you can give something -2, -2. If it doesn't defeat it, it at least puts it really close to being defeated. On top of that, you get to heal 2 damage from your base. So again, this isn't my auto slam pick. This is probably a wave 2 after you've got your primary color and your primary threats built. But Make an Opening is absolutely a playable card. It's got really good functionality. It's got great utility. You can take out small units, or you can turn off some of these, 2, 4, 2, 3s, whatever. It auto kills anything that's got 2 HP or less. So Greedo drops, all these 3/1s just disappear. And you also heal 2 damage. It's just value town, and in no hero or villainy penalty. So you can put it in any vigilance blue deck. I like this card a lot. I've used it and it's super, super functional. All right, Emperor's Royal Guard. While you control an official unit, this unit gains Sentinel. I wouldn't bet on that. While you control Emperor Palpatine as a leader unit, this unit gets +0/+1. If you're playing with official units, this is good. If you're not playing with official units, it's slightly above curve as a 3-4. I don't love it. I think it's situational, but I wouldn't write this off. All right, Super Laser Technician, Auto Slam. If you're playing green, take my money. Put this in, do it. Just do it. Do it now. Make it happen. DJ Super Laser is 100% an Auto Slam. If you're playing in green, you just take him. It's too good. It gives you a ramp. It gives you a body. You get a 2/1 body. Stats are terrible, but you crash him into someone. He gets defeated. You put it into your resource pile, and now you're up 1. So now you're ramping faster than the opponent. It's a winning card. Super good. Admiral Snack Bar, sure. Echo-based Defender. It's a 4/3 with Sentinel. I'm not mad at that. I mean, we just talked about a 2/4 with Sentinel. I said play that. So yeah, Echo-based Defender, I think, does a great job. Attack Pattern Delta. You can give a bunch of friendly units boosts, but it's double green aspect. I don't know. Probably not. I'm not jamming on this. Consortium Star Viper. This one's pretty fun. So it's a 3/3, 4/3. So it's on curve. While you have the initiative, this unit gains Restore 2. I mean, sure, it's fine. The thing I like about this card is it's a 3/3 for 3. It's just a really straight value card. It's in green, but it's not locked behind heroism or villainy. You could put this in any green deck, no penalty. It's a common, it's a space unit. I would absolutely take this because, again, like I keep saying, space units get looked over. People don't put space units in their deck, and then they come across an A-Wing and go, uh-oh, I don't have an answer for this. And they take, 6, 9, 12 damage before they can remove that card, and the damage has already been done. A-Wings unchecked can win games. So yeah, Consortium Star Viper, this can stop an A-Wing. There you go. And if you have initiative, it gains Restore 2. Just a little icing on the cake. Very, very good. Homestead Militia, sure. Resupply. This is your stock, ramp card. You pay 3, put it into your resource pile. Boom, shakalaka. Very good. Strike True. Fifth Brother. Let's take a look at this card. I like some things about this card. So it's a 3 cost, red and villainy, 2/4. This unit gains raid 1 for each damage on him. So as long as you've not died, he gets bigger. On attack, you may deal 1 damage to this unit and 1 damage to another ground unit. So this is a good card for plink damage and can pop shields. He does hurt himself, but you get the raid 1 trigger. So when you attack, you deal 1 damage to him, then your raid 1 trigger. So your swing technically is a 3/4 on your first attack, and you can poke another unit for 1. Cool. I like this card. If you can build around, so Fifth Brother fits in really well with Inquisitor. There's a lot of things that Fifth Brother fits well into, but he's not like the penultimate aggro card at 3. If you see this or an A-Wing, I would probably tend to lean towards the A-Wing because the A-Wing fits into more types of decks of red heroism, whereas Fifth Brother slots into red villainy, certain kind of decks. Like, don't get me wrong, you can totally put him into a red aggression deck. He works, but he needs some tools to kind of work around him to be extremely efficient versus just being efficient right out of the gate like an A-Wing. So I hope that makes sense. So is Fifth Brother bad? No. Is Fifth Brother God tier 10 out of 10? No. He's going to be probably in 6 or 7 out of 10. Very good, very functional, very playable, but you do need some build around to make him much more efficient. But if you've got some good aggression cards and you've got some good villainy cards, I think he's very playable. Just be aware that because he damages himself, he kind of drops quickly if your opponent has any kind of, body. Because, think about it. When you swing as a 2/4, you deal yourself a damage. So you then have a 3/4, but you only have 3 health left. So you're kind of a 3/3 at that point. And there's cards at this rate that have 3 attack. So, Greedo will drop him. And then, a Stormtrooper, a 3/1 Stormtrooper will drop him. There's, little combat tricks that can get through him. So he's not scary, but he works. He gets the job done. So yeah, super playable, but not the craziest thing ever. Fallen Lightsaber, very good. Fighters for Freedom, sure. I like it. I don't hate it. So it's a 3/4 for 3 resources, red and heroism. Saboteur, perfectly powerful ability, perfectly fine. And then when you play another red card, you may deal 1 damage to a base. Probably in my 99. I wouldn't frontline this auto slam, but if you've got space, sure, why not? Red 3. Here we go. My ham on space units. So this is a 2/3 4/3 in red and heroism, raid 1. So when you attack, you are a 3/3. Each other friendly heroism unit gains raid 1. Ooh, spicy. I like it. Very, very nasty. And it's in space, which is a little bit more difficult to, take down. So if you see a red 3 and you're playing heroism, aggression, and you have a Sabine, oh yeah, you want to play this card. If you have red 3 and you're not playing red as your primary and your leader is Chewbacca, maybe? Chewie can play this and give it Sentinel, I guess. So red 3, very functional in a red Sabine deck. Really, really good. Aggression, power, raid everywhere, scary. Anywhere else? Maybe? I don't know. Like, it's a 2/3 in space. It does give all of your heroism units raid 1, which is good. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with it. You can build around it. You just need the right tools to build around it. So red 3, very playable depending on the cards you get in your sealed deck. Okay, so let's talk about a card if you see this and you're playing heroism red, you absolutely want to put this in your deck and try to build around it. So for a cause I believe in, 3 cost, red and heroism, reveal the top 4 cards of your deck. For each heroism card revealed this way, deal 1 damage to an enemy base. You may discard any of the revealed cards and put the rest back on top of your deck in any order. Ooh. So there's a lot of things going on here. So first of all, you get to reveal the top 4 cards of your deck. If you're playing this card, you want to have as many heroism cards as possible. In sealed, this is tricky. In constructed, this card is nuts. This card is really, really good. In limited, I hate to say, like, I love this card. Like, this card is really, really good. In sealed, it's a lot harder to pull off because you just don't have the consistency of pulling all of the heroism cards. Like, you're not going to be able to have tons of like 100% heroism cards in your deck. So is this card good? Absolutely. Is it playable? It depends on what you pull. If you pull a ton of heroism cards, yes, absolutely put this in your deck. If not, I don't know if you want to pay 3 resources and only deal 1 damage or 2 damage. That feels really bad. So this card is very swingy in terms of actual value based upon the number of heroism cards in your deck. Is it possible to have a high amount of heroism? Yes. However, it's more likely that you're going to have a ton of cards that are in color but don't have a heroism tagline. And so that makes For a Cause I Believe in iffy. If you can get the right cards, super good. If you can't, then this card is kind of a wash. So it really depends on what you pull, but I like it. If you can build around it, go for it. And that's also something I want to say about Red 3. It's the same kind of issue where each other friendly heroism unit gains raid 1. Like, is it good? Yes, it's amazing. Will it work? Probably. But again, this symbol has to be on the card, and it just depends. Now, again, like I said, if you're playing with Sabine and red, like, you're probably going to want to slam this in because you're just going to have a ton of really low to the ground bodies. You're going to have a lot of aggression, a lot of damage, a lot of ways to just eat your opponent's health alive. And even if this only, empowers 2, maybe 3 units on your board, that's still an additional 2 or 3 damage that could win a game. So yeah, red 3, I think, is definitely more playable because it's a unit, it's in space, it's a 3/3 on offense, and it boosts your other heroism units, while For a Cause I Believe in is completely predicated on seeing heroism symbols, which you may or may not see. This one is a lot harder to control because you flip the top 4 cards of your deck and you don't know what those are. Whereas when you're using red 3, you know what's in your hand, you know what's on the field, and you can, use this ability much more consistently. Okay, Rallying Cry. Okay, I like this card a lot, and I'll tell you why. I've won multiple games with this card, so I have a bias. I'm going to say that right now. Technically, by pure stats, by all the metrics we've been using, this card is probably not super good. This is probably like a wave 2 or a wave 3 pick, and this is definitely going to be closer to like filling in slots in your 99 versus like frontlining. However, I'm okay with paying 5 resources to give all of my units raid 2, especially if I'm running Sabine, because you just get so much damage out of your units. It's raid 2. If you have like 3 or 4 units on the board, you just get an insane amount of value, and your opponent has to attack your units before they attack your base. So as long as your opponent doesn't have Sentinel, even if they do have Sentinel, you could just crash something into the Sentinel because of raid 2, and then you just start swinging at the base with just high volume, high damage really powerful units. Now, you are probably not playing double red aspect in your sealed deck. Like I said, you really want to play dual colors so you have access to multiple cards. However, I have played this card at 5 and I have won games with it. So I like the card a lot. However, I only had one, and it didn't show up every single game I played, obviously. And you are paying the aspect tax of 2 additional resources. So, you know, on an efficiency argument, no, this is not good. On a, you know, logistical argument, it's kind of okay. But if it does go off, it does a lot of work. So I'm not going to say frontline this, auto pick, slam it in. I would say like this is probably like your 20, like you have 29 cards, you need one last card. Rallying Cry makes a great argument to be your 29th or your 30th card. But yeah, if you've already got better cards than this, probably take those, if, in all honesty. But I do like Rallying Cry. It has application, and yeah, if you've got the 29, you're looking for that last one, go for it. Sympathizer, sure, it's fine. Disabled Fang Fighter. I like this card. When played, you may defeat an upgrade. A 3/2 for 3, so it's below the curve on stats, but you can defeat an upgrade, which means you can defeat a lot of things that are annoying, including shields and experience tokens. So this is probably in the 29. I'm gonna stop saying 99 because we're not playing Commander, but yeah, this is probably in the 29 where I need one last card. The rest of my deck is filled. This works. I think this can be good, but there's obviously better stuff in the field. Starwing Scout, sure. Mission Briefing, I'd rather have a body. I won't lie. The only time this ever gets kind of interesting is maybe when you're at like 4 or 5 resources, but that's when you really want to play big stuff. There's not really a space where this wants to be played. At round 3, at 3 resources, there are some insane cards we're about to talk about, like Boba Fett. I like Swoop Racer, Ezra Bridger, Fleet Lieutenant. Like, there's some nutso cards. And then this one's like, hey, choose a player, choose yourself, draw 2 cards. You're gonna do that at the end of the turn anyways, so I don't love this card. I mean, if you have to, sure, but probably not. Open Fire. Standard removal piece, probably one of the best removal pieces for as direct damage at this cost. Well, it's the only one actually. So yeah, if you see this, you probably put it in your red deck. It's just good. It's just good stuff. Direct damage. It's basically a removal piece. Nothing really, unless it's shielded, has more than 4 health. Generally at 3 resources. It's rare. Obviously, Boba Fett is the you know, one of the rare examples that this doesn't apply to. But yeah, on average, Open Fire can drop anything at the 1, 2, and 3 drop, minus, you know, Boba Fett. Exception to the rule. Womp womp. But let's talk about that exception to the rule. This is an insane legendary card. Holy smokes, if you pull this card, you probably want to build around it, unless you don't have good yellow cards. Then unfortunately, put him in a sleeve, put him in a put him in a good binder and keep him safe, because this card is El Nutso. 3 cost, yellow, villainy, 3/5 on attack. If this unit is attacking an exhausted unit that didn't enter play this round, deal 3 damage to the defender. What? What were they thinking? Oh my gosh. Look here. Design team. What even is this card? It's so good. It's nuts good. This is a good card. Like, a real good card. Like the low for Boba Fett. Wow. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love the art. I love the character. I love the leader. Boba Fett is an amazing bounty hunter, except for holes. He falls into those. Watch out, Boba. It's very dangerous. So, yeah, 3/5. Stat line, really good. On attack, as long as you attack an exhausted unit that didn't enter play this round, you get to deal 3 damage, essentially first strike. So if they have 3 or less health and Boba Fett attacks an exhausted unit that was from a different turn, they're defeated. They're toast. He takes no damage and they're gone. Otherwise, he deals 6 damage to that thing. So you can crash Boba Fett into things bigger than him. You can swing Boba Fett into things smaller than him. and he's a 3-drop. This Boba Fett can come out on turn 2. Gross. This is absolutely a card. If you pull this card, I would highly recommend trying to find ways to build around him, because this card is very potent. It's very strong. It's very aggressive. It can keep low to the ground bodies offline. Obviously, you have to pay attention to if the unit is exhausted and it didn't enter play this turn. So if your opponent plays a unit exhausted, Boba Fett's ability does not work. So, you know, reading the card explains the card, as the professor would say. So make sure you don't misread and misuse his ability, and then you don't get any value out of it. But as long as you're using Boba Fett's ability to the fullest, oh man, this card is really gross. And, you know, hyperspace is just beautiful. So yeah, if you find a Boba Fett, I would work as hard as you can to build around it. If you don't, then yeah, put it in a sleeve, put it in a top loader, get it graded, take it to the base. You know, his milkshake brings all the boys to the yard. This card's amazing. Next up, 7th Fleet Defender. We talked about this one in one of our videos. I like this card. I'm really high on this card. I know some people are maybe not as hot on it, and that's totally fine. Again, this is opinion. This is fun. I'm just talking about cards I enjoy, and hopefully this helps you get ready for your pre-release. But 3 cost, yellow, villainy, 3/2, shielded. Is it good? It's pretty decent. The biggest thing it's got going for it is it's shielded. The stat line 3/2, it's below curve because you would want a 3/3 for 3. But getting a shield for that 1 point of HP, I think, is well worth it. This can trade into a lot of things and the shield will protect it. Or you can do it like an A-wing and slam it into the opponent's base over and over and over. They have to attack it or use direct damage to pop the shield. Then they can deal with the 7th Fleet Defender, and that's annoying. This is very, very annoying because it's in space, which is hard to deal with. It's got a shield, which is also hard to deal with. And its stat line is big enough that if you swing into it, it's either going to defeat the thing swinging into it or severely hinder its HP to the point where you could use direct damage to defeat whatever attacked it or just crash a small body in, and the 7th Fleet Defender is fine. So as a common, I like this card a lot. If you're playing in yellow and you're playing in villain, I absolutely recommend it. I love this card a lot. Okay, another banger, Ezra Bridger, 3 cost, cunning, heroism, 3/4. So his stat line is above the curve, and he's got a really great ability. So sorry, 7th Fleet Defender. Ezra's just superior. So when this Ezra completes an attack, look at the top card of your deck. Great. You may play it, discard it, or leave it on the top of your deck. This is fantastic because you get to action sheet or thin your deck or do nothing depending on what Ezra shows you at the top of your deck. So it's a 3/4, it's above curve, great. Stats are fantastic. It's also a Spectre, so you can use this in conjunction with Chopper to get some funny value and annoy your opponent. And you get to look at the top card of your deck. This is great. But not only do you get to look at the top card, you can play it. That's nice because it could be an event, and that could be really nasty to attack and play an event. Oh boy. Or it could be a unit. Cool, you got another unit. Or if you don't need it or don't want it, just discard it. Now you're closer to getting something you probably do want. Or if it's something you do want, you could leave it on top of your deck. Like, there's so many practical applications with Ezra Bridger. This card is good. This card's very, very good. If you see it in your pool, play it. As long, again, with the caveat of make sure it synergizes with your deck. If you only have like 4 or 5 yellow cards and most of your cards are in villainy red, obviously Ezra is not going to work. But if you can find a way to put Ezra into your heroism deck, I think he's very good, and the ability to filter through your deck and control what you will or will not play is great. And again, above curve on the stats. Speaking about a card that's above curve on stats, at Legendary Rare, oh my gosh, these 3-cost Legendaries are hilariously awesome, and I love it because Millennium Falcon is one of the coolest ships in Star Wars. other than the Outrider that Dash Rendar flies. Please, Star Wars Unlimited designers, give us Dash Rendar and Kyle Katarn. Please, please, please. But Millennium Falcon, this is a 3-cost, cunning, yellow, heroism, 3/4, so above the stat lines. This unit enters play ready. Okay, sounds good. What's the downside there, Timmy? Well, when you ready cards during the regroup phase, either pay 1 resource or return this unit to their owner's hand. So, what's going on with this card? Well, it comes into play ready, which means you can attack with it on the turn you play it, which is not common at all. In fact, I think this is the only card that comes into play ready naturally without some kind of special ability or a card readying it up. And then you have to pay one resource to keep it in play. But that's after you've drawn your 2 cards, you've resourced, you've untapped, so on and so forth. So this card has a maintenance cost, as it's called in a lot of trading card games, where although the printed value is 3, every turn it's on the board, you have to continue paying 1. So it can add up pretty quickly, and depending on your resource management and your ability to ramp, this card may need to go back to your hand, or maybe you pay the maintenance cost and keep it online. It just depends. The other nice thing is, because of that maintenance cost, if the Millennium Falcon has damage on it, you can refuse to pay it. It goes back to your hand and all that damage falls off. So Millennium Falcon is really hard to deal with because either you have to defeat it, or the opponent will just return it to their hand and then play it fresh, and it's ready, and then it can immediately attack again. So Millennium Falcon, great legendary. If you can play this card in your deck, this is a banger. This is a frontline build around your deck card. If you pull it, try finding some like cunning heroism cards and, let your opponent just suffer with how powerful this card can be. Next up, Rogue Operative, sure. Bodhi, sure. Swoop Racer. This is a fun card I like. It's above curve. It's a 4/3 for 3 vanilla. There's nothing special going on here. It's just a really good card at a really good rate at a very early point in the game. I mean, 4/3 can pretty much KO anything outside of the 3/5 Boba Fett we've been talking about. But yeah, Swoop Racer, I like it. If you see it as a common, I would take it. It goes into hero or villain. It's just an above curve card. I like it. It's the simple cards in sealed are probably some of the most effective because they just get the job done. And what's the job? Deal damage, win the game. So a 4/3 does exactly what you want. It's a great body, does damage, it's above curve, it can take a hit, boom. Oh, and it's a common, so you'll probably see some of these in your sealed packs. Outmaneuver. This is a tricky one. I like it. I'm a control player, so I'll be very honest. It's a great tool to just lock down an entire unit, especially if for some reason you don't have any space units in your deck, or you don't have any space units on the board and your opponent has a couple that's just, poking you down. Outmaneuver can, at least give you a round where they're not dealing damage to you at all. So is it good? This is probably like a wave 2 pick. I don't think I would frontline this in my deck construction, but it is a very powerful tool to stall and give you the extension you need to not just die by turn 5 or 6 against aggro lists. Waylay, this is a great card in limited. I like this card a lot. I had it played against me, and it just really disrupted my tempo, especially if you're playing with Boba Fett, because his leader ability says if a unit left play this turn, I know that's actually, let's look him up. Let's look up leaders so I don't misquote this one. Here we go. So you may exhaust this leader if you do ready a resource when an enemy unit leaves play. So that's the important part. When this unit completes attack, if an enemy unit left play this phase. So all Boba cares about is units leaving play, not units being defeated. So let's go back to the 3-cost cards. Props to Star Wars Unlimited for creating a really robust website. I like it a lot. It's not perfect, but I wish, if you're listening, I wish you could do a couple more things with the filters. But overall, I think it's a great website. Okay, so Waylay, return a non-leader unit to its owner's hand. Hey, look, Boba Fett says when a unit leaves play, you can trigger his ability. So if Boba is in passive mode, not a unit, you can play Waylay and then discount it and untap a resource, so it only costs 2. And then if you use Waylay while Boba Fett is a leader and then he completes an attack, you can play Waylay for 1. Wow, super, super good. Again, yellow doesn't have direct removal, but it has tempo disruption. So if your opponent plays a card and it eats up all their resources, so say they play, a 3-cost Boba Fett, or they play a 3-cost Millennium Falcon. Cool, Waylay, go away. Oh, well, that's annoying. Yeah, that's what it's supposed to be. Waylay can be disruptive early game. So say you have your A-Wing online and you're, trying to attack your opponent and they play something in space. Okay, cool. Bounce it to their hand and then attack with the A-Wing. A-Wing's safe because they don't have anything to stop it. Or mid-game or late game, they play a big, 6-drop or a 7-drop. Okay, Waylay goes away. Oh. So yeah, Waylay is a very, very powerful tool inside of Sealed. It's good in Constructed as well, but being able to use this card at the right time, that's the key word. You don't auto slam this down if someone's like, I play my Greedo 1-drop, here's my 3-1, Waylay. Okay, sure, I'll play it again. Oops. You want to make sure their resources are low. Your opponent is committing to a big body. They're hoping to get something big and scary out so that in a subsequent turn, they can try and, go for gold and win the game. Waylay can shut that strategy down and push your opponent back 1 turn and give you the space you need to potentially win, or at least set up an answer. So that way you just don't lose the game automatically. So yeah, Waylay as a common, I would put that in your yellow deck as fast as you can. All right, Cell Block Guard, it's a 3/3 Sentinel for 3. Great, super powerful, very useful. Let's see here, Fleet Lieutenant. This is an absolute must-have in your hero deck. If you're playing Heroism and you see a Fleet Lieutenant, if you see 3 Fleet Lieutenants, if you see 18 Fleet Lieutenants, play Fleet Lieutenant. It's a 3/3 for 3. When played, you may attack with a unit. Any unit. So cool, you get an action sheet. If it's a Rebel unit, it gets +2/+0. If you're playing Heroism, you're probably going to prioritize majority of your units being Rebels. So Fleet Lieutenant allows you to have a 3/3 body, and you get an attack, and if it's a Rebel unit, it gets +2/+0. Fleet Lieutenant is just straight gas. This card is amazing. This is a card I would probably frontline if building a Heroism deck. Like, seriously, if you see 1 or 2 Fleet Lieutenants and you've got Rebels and hero cards, unless your villain package is just insanely efficient, you're probably going to lean into Heroism because Fleet Lieutenant is just firing on all cylinders. It's a great body on rate. It's a 3/3 for 3, and you get to attack. So you get an action sheet when you play the body. And on top of that, if it's a Rebel unit, you get a buff. So you're getting everything you want. You get an on-curve body, you get an action sheet attack, and you get to buff it if it's a Rebel unit. Just value, super high value out of 1 common. This card is great. So yeah, if you see these, slam them in your deck. Another card you probably want to build around, honestly, I like this card a lot too. Wing Leader, 3 cost, Heroism only, so it can go into any color deck. 2/1, stat line is not great, but the ability is when played, give experience tokens, 2 experience tokens to another friendly Rebel unit. So you can make a Rebel unit that was whatever, +2/+2. Wing Leader, really spicy card. As a space unit, really flimsy. Like 1 HP is very squishy. 2 damage, perfectly fine, but that's not what you're paying 3 resources for. You're playing for the opportunity to give 2 experience tokens to another friendly Rebel unit. And as we've seen, there's a lot of Rebels here. You can make Ezra a 5/6. You can make Fleet Lieutenant a 5/5. You can do a lot of really dumb things here. I mean, like Rebel Troop, you can give Echo Base Defender +2/+2, so it's a 6/5. There's a significant amount of targets that Wing Leader empowers, and you get a 2/1 body. Like, we'll take that. So yeah, Wing Leader and the Fleet Lieutenant, very good. Obviously, Fleet Lieutenant, in my opinion, Fleet Lieutenant's way better. But if you see a Fleet Lieutenant and a Wing Leader, pretty sure you're playing Hero because these just empower any color of Hero deck. So good. You're my only hope. It's a thing. Cool. Volunteer Soldier. This is a card. I kind of like this card if you're playing a trooper build. If you're not, this is definitely in the 29. Like, this is absolutely, I need one card, I need to fill in a slot, cool, volunteer soldier. But if you're playing a trooper list, being able to get the reduction. So this is a 3-cost card that has no restrictions whatsoever. It's totally neutral. So it has no color restrictions, it has no heroism or villainy restrictions. 2/3, raid 1. If you control a trooper unit, this costs 1 less to play. So if you have a trooper online, this is a 2-drop at 2/3. And if it swings on attack, it's a 3/3. On defense, it's a 2/3. Cool, very efficient, very powerful, very useful. If you're not playing in troopers, it's probably in the 29. Like, okay, I need an extra card, cool. Put this in, I'll probably resource it 9 out of 10 times. But if I need the body, like, cool, I'll take it. But yeah, that's the 3 drops. Let's move into the 4-cost cards. And as you can see, there's a lot less, and we're gonna try and get through these as quickly as we can here. All right, let's talk about some of these 4-cost cards and some of the highlights here. This will be a lot faster, trust me. Lieutenant Childson, I will say. This card's okay. It's a 4-cost for 2/2, so it's below curve. It has Sentinel, that's good. When played, reveal up to 4 blue cards from your hand. For each card revealed this way, give an experience token to this unit. Here's the trick. So in Constructed, you have way more control over your deck, which means you have more control over how many blue cards are in your deck. This is good. In Sealed, you don't. You only have 6 packs, and you have a limited amount of cards that you may or may not get. If you have a high amount of blue cards, this card becomes much better because you can potentially turn this unit into a 6/6 Sentinel. If not, this is probably like the 29, 30, 31st card. This is like, I literally have nothing better to play, so I'll just put this in. But yeah, if you have a lot of blue, go for it. If not, I don't think this card's very good. Search Your Feelings. This is tricky. So I'm pretty sure a lot of people are going to say this card's like mid to bad. I agree. Like, I see why. You want to have bodies on the board. You want to have tempo. You want to have aggression. You want to have not the color, but you want to be aggressively playing cards on turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, turn 4, because you want to consistently have this wave of pressure, this wave of attacks, and you want to constantly have options to deal with your opponent. Search Your Feelings, although it gets you any card you want, it puts you back on tempo, and there's a lot of 4-cost cards we're going to talk about that are scary good. This card doesn't give you any board presence, but it gives you a card for a future turn. So I don't think this is a frontline card. Like, if I pull this, I wouldn't be like, this is the rare I'm building around. But I'm not afraid to put it in my deck, because if we get to a later turn and I'm looking for something, it's useful. But this isn't like one of the first cards I would ever pick for a 4-cost. So take it as you will. It's probably like a 5 out of 10 if I had to rate it. It's good, but not like the card you really want on turn 4. Consular Security Force 3/7 gets the job done. Kanan Jarrus, this is an interesting one. So it's a 4-cost, blue vigilance, heroism, 4/5. So he's above curve on stats. And then he's got all the keywords ever possible. Force, Jedi, Rebel, Spectre. He's all the things. Here's the interesting thing about this card. So on attack, you may discard 1 card from the defending player's deck for each friendly Spectre unit, including himself. So you're going to get 1. Heal 1 damage from your base for each different aspect among the discarded cards. So if they have 1 aspect, you heal 1. If they have 2 different aspects, you heal 2. So Kanan is above curve as a 4/5. On attack, you discard 1 card, so you're milling, and you get to heal damage based on the different aspects. If they don't have any aspects, you don't get anything, but that's probably not going to happen frequently. So like on average, he's going to discard a card with at least 1 aspect, and then you heal damage. So it's kind of like mill 1, restore 1, or mill 1, restore 2 potentially. So Kanan gets a lot of love. I like Kanan a lot because, again, he's above curve. A 4/5 is really good. And after he attacks, he heals and discards cards. And as we said many times before this, anytime you're discarding cards in a sealed deck, your opponent doesn't have 3 copies of a card, unless it's a common, and even still, they may or may not have 3 copies of a card. So if you discard a legendary, if you discard a rare, even if you discard an uncommon, that could be the only version of that card in that deck, which means if they were hoping to hit something spicy, like their own Kanan Jarrus, and you mill it, that's it. They probably don't have another one. And now you've got your body on the board, and you've healed, and you've discarded that card, but they don't have access to pulling that out unless they have some kind of, resupply or something, which is probably not going to be in their deck, honestly. So Kanan has a lot of value. Plus he is Force and Jedi and Rebel and Spectre. So these are significant keywords where you have those cards that say, attack with a unit. If it's a Rebel unit, gain +2/+0. Fleet Lieutenant turns this into a 6/5 body. Ooh, spicy. With Force, you've got all these lightsabers and upgrades that say, you get, if it's a Force unit you attach to, get this extra bonus. So I like Kanan a lot. I feel like he could be a build around depending on the cards you pull. He's good. He's very good. If you see him in your pack, I would absolutely start to look at your blue and hero cards and see where he can slot in, because this card's very potent. Next up, the Force is with me. Sure. Vigilance. Okay. This, I'm going to get some flack on this. So, warning, trigger alert. Very, could say something dangerous here. Watch out. Danger, danger, Will Robinson. I think Vigilance has some of the coolest art in the game. And it is my favorite card in the entire set. Just because I like this look of Anakin and Obi-Wan. It's very sassy. It's kind of like a weird body stance for Anakin. He's kind of in like a snake formation, but we're not worried about that. Anyways, I love this card because it's a mill card. It's the best and pretty much the only mill card in the entire game. Choose 2 in any order, discard 6 cards from an opponent's deck, heal 5 damage from a base, defeat a unit with 3 or less remaining HP, give a shield token to a unit. It costs 4 resources, and it's double blue, double vigilance. All right, so is this card any good in limited? Probably not. Let's be really, really honest. As I've said, you probably don't want to be in double aspect. Probably don't want to pay 6 for this. Honestly, this is like the 29. This is like the 29th, 30, 31st card. If you just got nothing left, you've pulled every single card, the best opportunity, you could slot this in as your last card. But it's cool. I love it. I will probably, if I pull this card, I'm probably going to play it just for the sake of playing it, because I want to mill 6 cards from my opponent's deck. And then I'm probably going to heal 5 damage from my base. Is it a good play? Oh, no. Is it fun? Yes. And honestly, that's one thing I want to say here. If you're watching this video and you're in this spot, like, playing at these pre-release events is, in my opinion, supposed to be more about the fun, the camaraderie, the community, because there's no major prize support. Like, it's not a money event. It's not a tournament. There's no major prizing on the line. Like, there's some cool promos and things, but you're not playing for $1,000 or a limited edition playmat or a case of booster boxes. Your pre-release event is going to be people coming together, playing Star Wars Unlimited for the first time, cracking packs for the first time, getting to touch these cards, getting to see how these cards interact. And I think it is a really opportune moment to play with cards that might be less powerful, might be less popular, might be less interesting, because once we get into Constructed, we're really going to be gunning for, the high-level tournament stuff, the most efficient stuff, trying to formulate which decks are the best. But in a pre-release, you get 6 packs, and sometimes you get really good cards, sometimes you don't get really good cards, sometimes you get all kinds of weird stuff that maybe aren't in the colors of interest, or you get a bunch of leaders that you're like, maybe I'll play them now because I don't want to play them in Constructed. So my soapbox on this is, I think pre-release should be a fun event, and I don't think people should worry so much about the competitive power level and the efficiency level and all that stuff. I think everyone should just go and have a fun time, laugh, make friends, take pictures, post on social media, and enjoy just a really wholesome and fun game experience without having to worry about, like the money market and the competitive viability. Just go have fun. Go do silly things, try silly stuff. I've seen a lot of content creators say they're going to try, IG-88 or Hera. They're going to try the things that may or may not be competitively strong. But like I've seen a ton of people say they want to build Voltron Churret. And a lot of competitive players have said, Churret's probably not the best leader. And we don't know because we, haven't actually had, the entire world playing the game. But if you've seen a leader that you think, I'm probably not going to play this in constructed, I don't like the power level, maybe now's a good time to try it and see what happens. Like, if you're just playing for fun, go for it. Have a good time. But yeah, if I see a Vigilance, I'm going to put it in my deck just because I want to play it, because I think it's cool and it's my favorite card. All right, moving on. Bae's Malbus, pretty good. System Patrol Craft. This one is very good for one reason. It's a Sentinel in space, and it doesn't have a heroism or villainy tax. You can put it in any blue deck. It's a 3/4, perfectly fine stats. That 4 health is very good because your A-Wing can't auto-kill it, but the A-Wing will die if it swings into the System Patrol Craft. So Patrol Craft SPC can 100% trade with a ton of early game stuff and survive, and then it can just sit there and annoy your opponent so they have to deal with it before they can attack your base. So yeah, System Patrol Craft, I choose to put this in my deck as quickly as I can if I'm playing blue, because as a Sentinel in space, it's just really good. Takedown, if you're playing in blue, I highly, highly, highly recommend taking this card, because this is the one piece of removal that can auto defeat Sabine, because she has 5 health. She's a 2/5, and this is a really funny moment when your opponent deploys Sabine and you go, cool, takedown. Oh, what? So takedown can take down, haha, Sabine, the leader, as a 2/5. Takedown can drop that Boba Fett we were talking about. That's a 3/5. You can get rid of a lot of really scary things with 4 resources, and it's Vigilance only. It can go into hero or villain decks. This is a card, if I see it and I'm playing blue, it is an auto slam into my blue deck. If I'm not playing blue, you don't want to pay 6 for this. So it's a very dependent card. If you're playing in blue, do it. If not, don't worry about it. Let's see, Bright Hope. This is a really spicy card. Like, super spicy. So it is a 4-cost green heroism or green command heroism deck, 2 attack, 6 HP, Sentinel. Oh boy, this is gnarly. This is a thick Sentinel body. This is a hard one to get through. This milkshake brings all the boys to the yard, and they're like, it's bigger than yours. Also, it has an ability, when played, you may return a friendly non-leader ground unit to its owner's hand. If you do, draw a card. So the when played ability, you don't have to bounce, but you can. And if you do, you draw a card. So there's opportunities here where we talked about this with like the scoop up ability. You can return a friendly non-leader ground unit to your hand, cleaning off all the damage. And then if you do that, draw a card. So the big combo is you use Bright Hope to bounce a ground unit with ambush. You draw a card, and then you can play that unit again later, and then you immediately attack with it. So it could work. Just as a 2/6 Sentinel in space, I like this card a lot. It's just hard to get through. Now, unfortunately, the 2 attack doesn't do much. It doesn't drop a lot of bodies, but the 6 HP is really what you're paying for, because that is hard to crack with 4 resources on board. There's not much that can really deal with that early in the game. Even mid to late game, it's still annoying because your opponent's going to have to swing probably 2 units into the Bright Hope to drop it. So lots of defensive power coming out of Bright Hope. And again, you can choose to bounce a friendly non-leader ground unit and draw a card if you want to. So this is a very buildable card. This isn't like my number 1 4-drop ever, but it's a very good 4-drop in green. So if you see this, I would definitely look at your heroism and green cards and see if you can find a way to build around this and make a deck happen. Next up, command. It's a card, same thing. It's all the other command abilities. It's 2 of the same aspect, 4 cost. Sure, I don't think this one really flies in sealed. Escort Skiff, okay. It's fine. I don't hate it. I don't love it. It works. Imperial Interceptor. This is a card I think is very playable. It's a 4-cost in aggression and villainy, 3/2, so the stat line is below the curve, but when played, you may deal 3 damage to a space unit. So this is a great anti-space card because you can play the Imperial Interceptor, you deal 3 damage to a space unit, which usually will clear out most of the space units at this point in the game. So it drops your A-Wing, it drops a lot of stuff. The A-Wing is really one of the scariest things. It puts 3 damage into that Sentinel spacecraft, which then you can attack and get rid of it. Also, it's just a 3/2 space body. So if you're able to use the ability to clear out the space arena and you just have the Imperial Interceptor there, now you can start to poke your opponent and deal damage to their base and they don't have anything to do to you. Plus it's a common. So you're probably going to see this card. And again, if you're playing in red villain, this works really well with Vader if you have that additional resource where you can, play this card and then deal damage to something and deal damage to a base. So yeah, Imperial Interceptor, very playable, probably a wave 2, but if you see it and you're playing in red villain, I think this should go in your deck. All right, let's talk about a very good card that if you're playing Rebel aggression, like Hero Red has some really gnarly cards, and K2SO is absolutely one of those cards to discuss if you see this in sealed. So K2SO is pretty much one of the best 4-drops to build around in aggression heroism. If you pull this card, you're probably going to want to start searching immediately to see if you have Sabine as a leader, if you have your A-Wings. Like, this card is pretty nuts. So it's a 4-cost aggression, heroism, 4/4, overwhelm. So that means it's basically trample in Magic terms. If there's any additional damage that didn't go into a unit after you defeat them, it goes into the opponent's base. And then K2SO, when defeated, for each opponent, choose one. Either deal 3 damage to that player's base, or that player discards a card from their hand. So you're probably 9 times out of 10, probably 9.999 times out of 10, going to choose to deal the 3 damage. So K2SO just has a great body. It's on curve. It's a 4/4 for 4. Overwhelm is great. I mean, if you swing into a small body, you drop the body and you deal additional damage to the base. And on top of that, when K2SO is defeated, you just deal 3 damage to their base. Great. This is an auto slam. Like, if you see K2SO in your packs, start looking at your heroism cards, start looking at your aggression cards, start seeing what leaders you have, because this is a fantastic card to play with 4 resources. Moving along, we have Saw Gerrera. I like this card in Constructed. There's a couple builds around him. I don't think he's very good in Limited. Same thing with Aggression. It's a double aspect command card. When I say command, I'm thinking of the commands from Magic, like Cryptic Command, Austere Command. Basically, in Magic the Gathering, you had a card that had 4 options and you picked 2. It's almost identical to Star Wars Unlimited. Now, the casting cost and the speed and all that stuff are different, but the idea was, here's a card with multiple modes. You pick the modes you want, and you get just lots of flexibility and value out of a single card. So in Constructed, Aggression is fun. In Limited, probably not. Here's a card I also like to kind of auto slam into my aggression decks. That is the Wampa. It is a 4-cost aggression red card, 4/5. It is not linked to heroism or villainy, and overwhelm. Wow, these stat lines are really good. It's a 4/5, so it's above the curve. Overwhelm. When attacking an enemy unit, deal excess damage to the opponent's base. So exactly like K2SO, if you have a enemy unit that has 2/2 and you swing in with a Wampa, 2 damage goes into the unit and the rest goes into the base. Great. Wampa is above the curve, super sexy art, very efficient. And again, like I said, usually the simple cards that don't have a ton of text are some of the best cards in limited environments like Sealed and Draft, because they just have really good stats. That's kind of common in trading card games, that vanilla cards are very strong with their stat line to make up for cards that have really cool abilities and slightly weaker stat lines. So yeah, Wampa on curve. It's a 4-cost, 4/5 overwhelm. If you are playing an aggression and you pull this card, I absolutely recommend putting this into your deck. because this is a literal monster. It's so good on 4 resources. Like, you get a lot of value, and your opponent has a pretty annoying body to deal with. Like 4/5 is very, very annoying. It's a big, big body. Jabba the Hutt, 2/8. I don't think you should play this in limited. I really don't. I could be wrong. So Jabba's ability is each trick you play costs 1 less. That's nice. And when played, search the top 8 cards of your deck for a trick. Reveal it. If you find it, you can draw it and put it in your hand. Like, a 2/8 body is not bad. He's just not. If he was a sentinel, like, oh, that would make Jabba much, much scarier. But yeah, as a 2/8, he's not really defeating a lot of things. He does reduce your tricks, but that means you have to pull the tricks in your 6 packs, and you're probably not going to get many. He does dig for the cards with the trick keyword, but again, you're probably not going to have many. So in constructed, I think he's very playable. Limited, I don't know. Liberator Gunship, this is probably in the 29. Like, if you have Cunning Heroism and you need an extra card, you put this in. Otherwise, it's not bad. So it's a 4-cost yellow heroism 3/4 with ambush. So you can play it and immediately attack an enemy unit. But I don't think this is a frontliner. This is probably like a wave 2, maybe. There's just so many good cards in yellow that this kind of is in like the mid-range. Cunning, this is a really good this is a really good command card. So will you play it if you pull it? Maybe. Okay, let's talk about this one. So it's double Cunning, so double yellow, 4 cost. All the cards are exactly the same. 4 cost, double of 1 aspect. Here are the 4 modes you can pick. Return a non-leader with 4 or less power to its owner's hand. Give a unit +4/+0 for this phase. Exhaust up to 2 units. An opponent discards a random card from their hand. So in sealed, you're probably going to exhaust up to 2 units and either bounce a non-leader or give yourself +4/+0. Is this worth 6 resources? Possibly. Like, probably. Oh, it's so tricky. Like, turn 6 is gonna have some really good cards we're gonna talk about. If you're playing yellow and green, so here's what I'll say. If you're able to ramp with green and get like DJ Techno Laser or resupply into your resource pile, and you can play this earlier for maybe, a turn or 2. So then this could be much better. If you're hard casting it at 6 resources, it's still probably very playable, just because exhausting 2 units and bouncing another one is oppressive, or exhausting 2 units and giving yourself +4/+0. And then on top of that, you could use Surprise Strike. So like, you could use Cunning to exhaust 2 units, give a unit +4/+0. And then if your opponent doesn't deal with that unit that has the +4/+0, you could then play a Surprise Strike and give it an additional +3/+0 in attack. So you're giving a unit +7 on attack. That could win a game. That could absolutely be very devastating to your opponent's game state. This is probably the one dual aspect card that could see play in limited, just due to its insane versatility. If it's outside of green, I don't know. Personally, I don't know. That's tricky. I like these cards, and I'm also planning on having fun at my my pre-release events, so I'm not really worried about winning and going undefeated. I just want to play fun cards and see what happens, because this is like the one time where winning or losing, in my opinion, isn't like super relevant. Like, I'm not paying tons of money and I'm losing prize support. Like, the $30 basically covers the booster packs, and then everything else is just a blessing. So the promo cards are great. If the stores give out booster packs or any kind of prize support, I'm totally happy with that. So this is the one opportunity where I don't mind playing Cunning and seeing what happens. But like, if we're talking about like the most pure, efficient possibility, like in green, maybe. Out of green, probably not, if I was really honest. But I like this card a lot. I think it could definitely see playing limited. Good morning, guards. While you control another yellow unit, this is Sentinel, and it's a 4/4 for 4. So it's an on-curve body. If you have a lot of yellow, this is great. If you don't, you probably don't want to play it. Strafing Gunship. This is an interesting one. So it's a rare, so you're probably only going to see one. It is a 4-cost cunning yellow card. No heroism, no villainy, so it can go in any deck. 3 attack, 4 defense, 4 HP. This unit can attack units in the ground arena. Cool. While this unit is attacking a ground unit, the defender gets +2, -0. I like this card. I think this is very playable, especially if you can use this to eat ground units that are bothering you. That feels really nice. And you give them -2, -0. So they're going to deal less damage to your gunship, and you're going to deal maximum damage to their unit. So if you see a strafing gunship and you're in yellow, I do think this is playable. It's probably going to be in like a wave 2. There's better cards in yellow that you're going to want to search for. But if you have the spot for it, I think strafing gunship is very, very good. Don't get cocky. I'm not messing with that. I'm good. TIE Advanced. It's fine. If you see it and you're playing villainy and you don't have anything better to do, probably. Maximum Firepower. This is one I think if you're playing villainy, you should try really hard to put into your deck. It's a 4-cost villainy only, so it goes into any color deck. It's just got to be in villains without the aspect tax. A friendly Imperial unit deals damage equal to its power to a unit. Then, another friendly Imperial unit deals damage equal to its power to the same unit. So basically, you pick 2 Imperial units, they deal their power as damage to something you don't like. So it can be a leader, it can be a space unit, it can be a ground unit, whatever you want. And since removal comes at a premium, and this is a common card, if you're playing inside of a villain deck and you have Imperial units, which you really should, most villainy things are Imperial, this should be an auto pick for removal, just because, like I said, you don't have a lot of it. And being able to take 2 of your units and kind of like bully 1 unit usually is more than enough damage to take out any serious mid-range to low power threat. So this is a great way to get rid of Sentinel. This is a great way to poke your opponent's leader when they come out. This is just a great card on value to put pressure into your opponent and remove threats from their field while keeping bodies on your field. And the nice thing is you don't have to exhaust your units to do this. You just point and click and say, okay, Imperial Unit 1 deals damage here, Imperial Unit 2 deals damage to that same unit, boom. And then you can still attack into units or bases depending on what you need. So yeah, Imperial Firepower as a common, I think if you see it and you're playing villainy, you should take it. Here's another one you should probably auto slam in if you're taking heroes. Dodonna, General Dodonna, 4/4 for 4. Other friendly rebel units get +1/+1. So if you're playing a rebel heavy deck, not just heroes, but just rebels, this gives you a lot of extra punch and makes your stuff just stronger. There's no reason not to take it, and I think he's really good. Regional Sympathizers. This is a very interesting neutral card, so it's a 4-cost heroism only, or heroism, no color code attached to it. 3/4, restore 2. Said it before, restore is pretty good. Restore on a 3/4 is very, very good, and it's a common. So this is absolutely going to be one of your filler cards because you're on average going to have 25, maybe 27 cards you want, and then you have like 3 to 5 slots you just need to fill. Regional Sympathizers is perfectly viable. It's a good body, it's got a great healing effect, and it's going to be pretty difficult to take down with just one body. You're probably going to need like 2 things to swing into it, or you could use like open fire. There's a lot of things that can drop Regional Sympathizers, but they're few and far between. So I think this is a good card. If you have extra space, go for it. If you're just kitted out with all these really efficient cards in color and in faction, like, don't worry about it. But Restore 2 is worth looking at, and I think it's a good card. And then lastly is Frontier ATRT. This is a 4-cost, 3/5. Stat line is fine. That's really not what you're playing this for. It's the special ability that says, while you control another vehicle unit, this unit gains ambush. So if you can build around it, and you've got some things in space, some vehicles in the space arena, and you can get Frontier AT-RT online with ambush. I've had this played against me multiple times by multiple people. This is annoying. 3-5 usually can drop a body and defeat a smaller unit without being defeated itself. So you get a lot of value out of a 4-cost card that can come into play, ambush attack something, and then it's still standing as a 3 attack with whatever health is left over. And then if you're running it inside of Krennic, you also get +1/+0 with damage things. So you can potentially turn the AT-RT into a 4-5, depending on the situation. So yeah, I like this card. Definitely, it's going to be in the 29. If you're just needing something to fill in slots, this works extremely well. This and the Sympathizers here are probably 2 of the better neutral cards. If you're just looking to slot 1 or 2 extra cards in to fill in that deck, I would look at these. Frontier AT-RT obviously is predicated on having vehicles. So if you don't have vehicles, don't have a lot of space units, Sympathizers is better. If you have a lot of vehicles and space units available in your deck, I think Frontier AT-RT is probably the better choice because of that ambush ability. But yeah, these are the 4-cost cards. There's a lot of fun things in here, and then let's move on to our 5-drops. And this is where things get pretty interesting. There are definitely some duds. There are definitely some big winners in here. All right, so let's get started with Gideon Hask. I'm neutral on this card. It's a 5/5 for 5 that says, when an enemy unit is defeated, give an experience token to a friendly unit. I don't hate it. Having that passive ability is nice, especially when any enemy unit is defeated. Like, this works really well in multiplayer, which we're not doing, but in sealed, I don't know. It's a 5/5 for 5, so it's an on-rate body. In villainy, blue, you do have a lot of things that can defeat units, like removal events. If you're playing like blue-red, if you're playing Is It villainy, I think this could have a good place, just because giving experience tokens out when things are dying feels great. You just have to keep Gideon alive, which is possible. It's not a difficult thing. I don't think I would auto slam him in, but if you can build around lots of removal, lots of direct damage, like I could see Gideon in like Vader. So you have Vader red, and then blue is the support color. So you bring blue removal, blue bodies, blue sentinel, and you can slow your opponent down. You can use Vader's ability to deal damage. You can use your red damage like open fire. You can use your blue removal to defeat units. And then you just keep giving experience tokens to things. You can make your Vader bigger. You can make a lot of things bigger. So yeah, Gideon, if you build around him, can be good, but just like on his own, I don't think he's like just prohibitively amazing. Vigilant Honor Guards, again, as we said, Sentinels are really annoying. So a 4/6, while this unit is undamaged, it gains Sentinel. It's a 5-cost card. I would rather have the Cloud Sentinel we talked about earlier, because it's cheaper and it just has Sentinel. It doesn't have a restriction of when it does and when it doesn't have Sentinel. A 4/6 is hard to deal with, don't get me wrong. I just would rather have Sentinel online 100% of the time than some of the time, because healing and bouncing and all that stuff is not easy to find. So I'm pretty low on Vigilant Honor Guards. Rugged Survivors, I don't care about this at all. It's fine, I don't love it. Vanquish, talking about Gideon and removal. This is really easy. It's a very, very staple card for blue. It's just 5 cost in vigilance, defeat a non-leader unit. Just bam. Anything that's non-leader, gone. Super powerful, very easy. It's just a great card in blue removal. If you're playing control or with Gideon, this should go in your deck. If not, don't do it. All right, I'm gonna mispronounce this name, I'm pretty sure, but I think it's Ruck or Rook. This is an interesting card. So it's 5 cost, green command, villainy, 3/6, shielded. When this unit deals combat damage to a non-leader unit while attacking, defeat that unit. So this basically has death touch from Magic the Gathering. So this unit deals combat damage to a non-leader unit while attacking. You just defeat it. It doesn't matter how much health it has, it's gone. The shielded helps keep this unit in play because people are going to want to get rid of him real quick. Also, this effect does not work on defense. So it's a little worse than Death Touch because Death Touch is just always. If you're on offense, if you're on defense, anytime you deal combat damage, you just kill whatever in Magic the Gathering. In Star Wars Unlimited, this is not a keyword, it's an ability, and it only works on offense. So the shielded helps keep Ruck around a little bit longer. This is actually a great target for ECL, Energy Conservation Lab. That's a rare base. You can bring him out with ambush and then swing immediately. And then with the shielded, the shield drops off, the unit stays, but you've dealt combat damage and whatever you attacked is dead. So if you can build, if you get ECL and you get Ruck, for some odd reason, it just happens, you get the magical pulls. He could potentially work. You do have to build around this card a lot. It's not like an auto pick, super efficient. There's things that do have to go right with your pulls and things that have to go right with your card draw in order for this to work. But as just a body in a vacuum, it's okay. Like the shielded works, the offensive death touch works. It's not bad. It's probably in my wave 2 of picks. Maybe wave 1 if I get a lot of green and ways to cheat him out, or maybe, you know, ECL. Like there's things that could push him to the front line, but he's kind of like probably like 6 or 7 out of 10 if I had to give him a number. But here's a card you kind of want to auto slam in your deck if you're running green villain. That is Overwhelming Barrage, or OB as the kids would call it these days. This is a green command villainy card that says give a friendly unit +2/+2 for this phase. Cool. On top of that, then it deals damage, that unit you just buffed with +2/+2. Then that unit deals damage equal to its power divided as you choose among any number of other units. We talked about this card in our like leaders with Boba Fett, as well as removal videos with tips on how to play well in your sealed events. And Overwhelming Barrage is absolutely a card that if you see it and you've got green villainy, like either as a primary or secondary color, you put this in your deck. This is one of the best cards in the game because not only do you buff a unit, and it keeps that buff until the end of the phase. So you take any unit and you give it +2/+2, then you deal damage equal to the power. So if you have, you know, that Boba Fett, that's a 7 or it's a 4/7, you use OB, it becomes a 6/7, and now you can just deal 6 damage anywhere you want, in any capacity you want. So you could do 5/1, 4/2, 1 packet of damage to 6 targets each. Like you get to pick. It's however you want. So generally when you play OB, you're dropping, like you're defeating 2, maybe 3 units. And then on top of that, the unit you buffed gets to attack, and usually it's attacking into a base. So Overwhelming Barrage gives you the opportunity to clear out a bunch of units and then either crash into a big unit you can't defeat, or just swing into their base and, you know, boom, your base just took an insane amount of damage. So yeah, Overwhelming Barrage, very, very, very powerful card. If you pull it, look for a way to build it into your deck. If not, don't pay 7. You probably don't want to pay 7 for this card. It is good, but there's really good 5 costs. And if you're slapping it into a deck that's outside of green, so say you're playing Villainy and it's like red-blue or yellow-red or something, you probably have other cards you really want to see over Overwhelming Barrage at a 7 cost. So yeah, keep it in green, keep it in villain, hurt your opponent big time. Wedge Antilles, I like this card. He gives each friendly vehicle +1/+1 an ambush. So if you have a really, really heavy hero green with vehicles, go for it. If not, I don't think Wedge is very good. He's super dependent on what you pull, and it's a big ask. Could it happen? Yes. Will it happen? Probably not. General Krell, I'm not a big fan in limited. Agent Callus, maybe. So his like defining factors are ambush And when another unique unit is defeated, you can draw a card. I think there's better cards on cost, so we'll kind of move through. Steadfast Battalion. This is a fun one. It's a 5/5 for 5, and it has Overwhelm, which is good. And on attack, if you control a leader unit, give a friendly unit +2/+2 for this phase. This is a green unit. No heroism, no villainy. I think this is a great filler card. So if you're playing green, I believe this is a perfectly viable 5-drop because you get 5/5, Overwhelm, and if you have a leader, which many decks have leaders that can come out turn 4, 5, or 6, then the Steadfast Battalion is a 7/7. Way above curve and Overwhelm. So you crash into somebody's unit and then all the extra damage goes into the base. I think Steadfast Battalion can be a very good card, but I would say this is probably like wave 2. Once you've got your threats and your colors established, then you can add this in to support your primary cards chosen. Traitorous. This is a really gnarly card in limited. So it's a 5-cost command, and it doesn't have heroism or villainy, so it can go into either deck. It's a 0/0 upgrade, and what you do is use the effect that says, when this upgrade becomes attached to a non-leader unit that costs 3 or less, take control of that unit. When this upgrade becomes unattached from a unit, that unit's owner takes control of it. So Traitorous is really nasty because a lot of people are going to be playing cards we've talked about earlier, like say A-Wing and Wing Leader. So they're going to put 2 experience tokens on that A-Wing, and when it attacks, it's a 5-attack body. You don't want to deal with that over a long period of time. So Traitorous allows you to take units from your opponent that cost 3 or less, and if they have an upgrade on it, you take that upgrade. If they have experience tokens, you take those experience tokens. If it has a shield, you get all of it. And there's a lot of really interesting things that people try and do to make their low to the ground bodies stronger. And then Traitorous just yoinks it and steals it. So this is a good card. It is a rare, so you're probably only going to see one. You probably only want one. But again, this is a great card in green. If you're playing green hero or villain, I would put this in your deck. I would absolutely slot this in. It's not my number 1. It's probably like 1.5. Like whenever I'm building a deck, I want to focus on first finding how many cards in a color I have, and then finding out, does it lean towards hero or villain? So if you are running, green in either hero or villain, put Traitorous in. If you're running red or blue or yellow, you don't want to put Traitorous in and pay 7. This isn't worth 7. But yeah, if it's a primary or secondary color you're running, I would absolutely slot this in. Very, very good card. Can absolutely swing games. Seventh Sister. Here we go. This is a fun one. So 5-cost, aggression, villainy, 3/6. So interesting stats. Saboteur. When this unit attacks, ignore Sentinel and defeat the defender's shields. So that's pretty spicy. And then when this unit deals combat damage to an opponent's base, you may deal 3 damage to a ground unit that opponent controls. So what makes Seventh Sister interesting is with Saboteur, she can ignore Sentinel. So if your opponent's trying to slow you down, she can just get right past that and you deal damage to your opponent's base. And then you trigger her ability to deal 3 damage to a ground unit that an opponent controls. So if she deals damage to a base, she is essentially dealing 6 damage split, 3 to the base, 3 to a unit. If she attacks a unit, the only thing you really want to use her for is to defeat shields and then crash her into something that thought it was safe that isn't anymore. But Seventh Sister is really meant to swing into the base and then you poke something else with 3 damage. So in red villain, this is another great tool to have like direct targeted damage. And because of Saboteur, you can't slow her down. So if you're playing in red villain, you're going really aggressive, goes pretty well with Vader. I mean, why not? You can use her to do a lot of stuff. If blue, yellow, or green is your primary color, in villain, she's still pretty good. I don't hate the card. You probably still put her in. I don't see a reason why you wouldn't put her in if you're using red villainy. She just does a lot at the rate you're paying for her. So if you see her, go for it. If you see her and you're not playing in red, probably put her in a sleeve and put her in a binder because you don't want to pay 7 for this card. I don't think it's worth it. Zeb, this is This is a card. So he's a 5/5 for 5 in aggression and heroism. When this unit completes an attack, if the defender was defeated, you may deal 4 damage to a ground unit. So Zeb is good. He's a little slow. A lot of people say they wish Ambush was on this card. That would make him really good. Probably a rare at that point. So this isn't uncommon. I don't have any problem with Zeb. There's obviously better cards in the range of like 5, depending on what colors you're playing. But if you're playing red hero, I think this is perfectly fine. I don't see a problem with him. He's an on-curve body with a good ability. So, you know, swing him into something, defeat it, and then boom, you get an extra 4 damage somewhere else. That works. Next up, we have the Occupier Siege Tank. Gets the job done. Nothing special to talk about. It's fine. Bombing Run. This is a fun card. So it's a 5 cost, aggression, not locked behind hero or villainy. Choose an arena, deal 3 damage to each unit in that arena. This is a mini board wipe. You can use this to do an insane amount of damage and either clear out a bunch of units or damage a bunch of units so that they are very weak and prone to be defeated in combat. If you see this card in your packs, I do think it's worth looking at putting it in. This is a very strong card and it's probably going to be in your wave 2 once you solidify what units you're going to be building around for your aggression deck. But yeah, I think this is a perfectly fine card. When played at the right time, you can really hurt somebody. Okay, moving along, we have Smoke and Cinders. Perfectly fine, nothing special here. Each player discards all but 2 cards. I don't think this is prohibitively amazing in sealed. Bosk, I like this card a lot though. So it's a 5 cost, cunning and villainy, 4/5, ambush, and when you play an event, you may deal 2 damage to a unit. So you get to play this card. You can immediately ready and attack an enemy unit. And then on top of that, when you're playing events, you get to just kind of snipe things out. Bosk is really cool as an uncommon. This is a perfectly fine card to put in a villain deck with cunning. I think this is a unit you can build around depending on the cards you pull. So yeah, if you see a Bosk and you've got some events and some other cards in cunning to help support, I think you could absolutely play this card. He's not bad. Again, you want to make sure there's synergy. So if most of your cards fall into like red and blue and you have a couple cards in yellow, obviously that's not going to work. But yeah, if your primary or secondary cards fall into yellow plus X and they're villain heavy, Bosk is a very, very potent card. And then the other side of that coin is Chewbacca, a 5 cost, cunning, heroism, 3/6 sentinel. Oh boy. And with an ability, when this unit is attacked, ready him. This Chewbacca is annoying. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen someone play this on turn 5 and I feel like I'm staring down the barrel of a shotgun because I don't want to attack this Chewbacca. I don't have enough things to just instantly defeat him. 6 HP is just gross. On top of that, if I attack the Chewbacca, then he readies and then he can attack me. And then I still probably haven't killed him because the Chewbacca will attack my base. And then I have to swing into him again with something to defeat him. So it's like, it's a lose, 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 feel bad moment. Like if I have direct removal, that's fine. But if I have to do it the old fashioned way with actually attacking, this Chewbacca is annoying. So same thing as Bosk. If you have cunning and hero, this is a card you absolutely want to build around. If not, don't do it. But yeah, Chewbacca and Bosk are really good in that 5 card slot. Next up is Cantina Bouncer. This is a 5 cost card in double aspect yellow. I wouldn't worry about this. I don't think this card is worth your time. Syndicate Lackeys. I do think this card is worth your time. 5 cost, cunning, no hero, no villain. It can go in either deck. 5/4 ambush. Very simple, very effective. You slap this down, you swing it into somebody, drop a unit, and then go from there. Great body. This is a common, so this will absolutely fill in your common slots. This is something I think you can build around in yellow if you are going into the yellow decks. Snowspeeder, I also like this card a lot. So it is a 5 cost hero only, so no colors. 3/6, ambush, And on attack, exhaust an enemy vehicle ground unit. So thematically, this is supposed to exhaust like an ATST or something like that. But being able to play a 3/6 with ambush in any hero deck, it's good. Obviously, this is not a front runner. Like, you're not going to be using this as a primary card in your wave 1 to build around, but this is absolutely a wave 2. If you're going to be playing in hero, this is going to help fill in those like 15 to 25 card slots, because your first picks are probably going to be cards like 1 through 12. Those are the ones you're building around. But Snowspeeder fills in the rest of your deck very nicely, just as a good body, as a great ambusher. And then on top of that, if you happen to see an enemy vehicle, you get just value out of it. But yeah, a 3/6 body with ambush is nice because you can swing into something, you can take it out, but you should survive. And then your opponent has to deal with a 3/6 body on the board, which is pretty annoying. And then last up, the Prerelease Freighter. This is definitely, in my opinion, one of the, like, this is like your 29, 30, 31st card slot. This is a 5-cost gray card, so it doesn't have any aspects at all. It can go in any deck, anywhere. It's a 4/4 with Sentinel. If you just don't have anything better, this card works, but I really probably wouldn't put this in my deck unless I absolutely had to and I had nothing else better to go. I had 0 space units and everything else I just pulled like dog water. It is a card. It can be played, but you're probably not going to play it unless you absolutely have to, or depending on your event. Like I said, normally with sealed, you're able to slot cards out from what you pull. So if you run into someone's deck that's just filled with space units, this can be a good card to slow them down. Unless that happens, you're probably going to have this in your binder sitting around doing very little. So those are the 5-cost cards. Let's talk about 6 drops. As you can see, we're starting to run low on options. So Academy Defense Walker, perfectly fine. I think this card works. Obi-Wan Kenobi, again, perfectly fine. I think this card works really well. I like this one a lot more than Academy. It's a 6-cost blue vigilance hero, 4/6 with Sentinel. Great. And when Obi-Wan's defeated, he turns into a ghost. Give 2 experience tokens to another friendly unit. If it's a force unit, draw a card. This is absolutely a card I would say if you're in blue hero, put it in. This is a card you can build around. A 4/6 Sentinel is no joke. And when he dies, he gives a big boost to another friendly unit. And if it's a force unit, you get to draw a card. Like, there's 0 downside to this card. It's great, it's powerful, it's annoying, and it's hard to deal with. On top of that, if you have like yellow and blue hero where you have like Chewie Sentinel and then Obi-Wan Sentinel, you just have so many Sentinel tools where your opponent's just gonna have a really tough time getting through to your base on the ground. Super, super good. The Ghost, it's shielded. It's giving shields to Spectre units. I don't hate this card. I feel like it's mid. Like, it's okay. That's like the best I can say. Like in sealed, it's probably better than constructed. So it's a below. Well, it's tricky. So it's a 6-cost for a 5/5, but it's shielded. So instead of being a 6/6 for 6, you're 1 point down on each stat, but you get a shield. You do give the opportunity to give a shield token to another Spectre unit. I don't know if you're even going to have another Spectre unit, so that second ability might just be moot. So, like, are you paying for a 5/5 shielded space unit for 6? Is that worth it? Maybe. This is probably, again, in the 29. Like, I have nothing better, and I just need 1 card to fill in my deck. Like, you could put the Ghost in, but I don't feel, unless you draw a lot of Spectres, then this could be good. But as is in a vacuum, I don't love this card. Bendu, I'm not even gonna touch that one. I'm not into it. Cargo Juggernaut, I am into this card for a couple of reasons. One, it's a 6-cost, 4/6 in blue vigilance, no hero, no villain, so it can go into either side. It is shielded. I like shielded a lot. When played, if you control another blue vigilance unit, heal 4 damage from your base. This is a card I've talked about in the utility cards. This is a really potent card if you have a lot of blue. Healing 4 damage from your base is no joke. That's a lot of damage that you can just take off immediately. A 4/6 shielded body is also very good. You can drop quite a few things. 6 HP is hard to deal with, and the shield allows you to like attack into something, defeat it, take no damage in return, and your opponent has to do something about this body on top of healing. If you can get a lot of blue and a cargo juggernaut, absolutely build around this card. If your blue is limited, it's still a pretty decent body. The 4/6 shielded isn't bad. There's better cards, obviously. Like I would take Obi-Wan over this. But if you can get a lot of blue and you can trigger that heal, I think this card is very powerful and you should totally put it in your deck. Gladiator Star Destroyer. Give a unit Sentinel for this phase when you play it. It's not bad. This is probably in the 29-30 slot card. Like it's decent. Rogue Squadron Skirmisher. Ambush. It's a 4/6 for 6. When played, return a unit that costs 2 or less from your discard pile to your hand. Sure, I don't hate it. It's fine. Mercenary Company. It's a 5/5 for 6 with Ambush and Overwhelm. Again, it's fine. I don't hate it. It's perfectly usable. Ruthless Raider. Here's a card I do like quite a bit. It's a 6 cost, red aggression villainy, 4/6. When played, deal 2 damage to an enemy base and 2 damage to an enemy unit. And when it's defeated, it does the same thing. So this is a spicy card at uncommon. So you play a 4/6 in space, you deal 2 damage to a base, and you deal 2 damage to an enemy unit. So for 6 resources, you get a 4/6 body, and you get 4 direct targeted damage on cast, like on play. This is really, really good if you get to 6 resources, because games can be fast depending on leaders and cards you pull. But if you can get to the mid-range game, Ruthless Raider as an uncommon is very, 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 very good. Just because you have 4/6 as a body in space, you deal 2 damage to a base, so it's just free damage, and then you deal 2 damage to any enemy unit. So if you have something that's like damage and it only has a couple points of health left, you can use Ruthless Raider to ping it, and then boom, that thing is defeated. You can use it to pop something that has a shield. The shield is gone. You can use it to ping something for 2 damage, and now it's weakened, and it's within range of being defeated by another unit. Like, the flexibility of Ruthless Raider is really good. On top of that, when it's defeated, it does the same thing. So even if you never get to attack, like say you play Ruthless Raider and then your opponent immediately defeats it with some kind of removal spell, you still get 4 damage to the base and 4 damage spread around in 2 packets of 2 as you want. So that there's nothing bad about this card, and that's like the worst possible like experience is you play it, it gets defeated immediately. Every time you get to attack with this card, it's just more value over and over again. So yeah, Ruthless Raider, very, very good. This is something you can absolutely build around in villain aggression. And if you see one, go for it. I think this is a very good card to build around. Black One, I mean, it's a 4/4 with 6. Its ability is when played or when defeated, you can discard your hand, draw 3 cards. It's a legendary in limited. I don't know. There's better cards like this one, the Gorilla Attack Pod. Just moving along here. 6 cost, heroism, aggression, 4/6, grit. And that means this unit gets +1/+0 for each damage on it. And when played, if a base has 15 or more damage on it, ready this unit. So with with red decks, you generally do have 15 damage by the time you get to 6 resources on the board. So 9 times out of 10, this card comes out untapped and you attack for 4. On top of that, with 6 HP, it's very hard to defeat this unit with 1 swing. So it's not uncommon to have someone attack into it, and then you've got some damage on the Gorilla Attack Pod, and now the grit triggers and you can attack for more. But realistically, you're paying 6 for a 4/6 body that has better ambush, because ambush you have to attack a unit. With this ability, you can attack a unit or the base. So the 15 or more damage on it isn't really that big of a restriction in my opinion. So this is another card I think if you see it, you can build around it in hero aggression just because of how valuable it really, really is. Forced Surrender, it's whatever, you draw 2 cards, blah, blah, blah. Next up, Bounty Hunter Crew. This is a card I had played against me multiple times, and I hate this card because of how good it is. So it's a 6-cost villain and cunning, so yellow, 4/4 with ambush, which is great. And then when played, you may return an event from a discard pile to its owner's hand. So the 2 pieces that make this card great is ambush. You get to just play it and swing. And then when you play it, you get to return an event from your discard pile. So there's tons of events in yellow. Yellow is very event heavy. So we talked earlier about like Waylay, Surprise Strike, Shoot First, Asteroid Sanctuary, yada, yada, yada. There's a ton of cool events at low cost, no good to be dead, that cost like 1, 2, 3. So you can play a Bounty Hunter Crew, attack immediately, and you can give your hand, you could, sculpt your hand with a really cool piece of, control or removal or disruption, depending on what your secondary color is. Bounty Hunter Crew offers a lot. The stat line is not as high, but the ability to attack immediately kind of offsets that, plus the recursion. This is a card that's a common. If you see it, I would absolutely put it into your deck and try and build around it. It's a great card at 6 resources, and I think it's very, very potent. Speaking of which, here's another one that could be pretty gnarly if you happen to pull it. Fet's Fire Spray is a 6-cost villain and cunning, so yellow, vehicle in space. It's a 5/6 body. When played, if you control Boba Fett or Jango Fett as a leader or unit, ready this unit, and then action for 2 resources, exhaust a non-unique unit. And you don't have to tap the Fire Spray. It's an unlimited amount as long as you can continue paying the 2 resources and taking that action. So a couple things to think about Fet's Fire Spray. If you have Boba Fett as your leader, this is good. If you have Boba Fett as a unit, this is also good. You probably want Boba Fett as the leader though, because when you play it, regardless of where Boba Fett is as a leader or a unit, you get this ability, which is great. A 5/6 untapped is scary. On top of that, for 2 resources, you could just tap down things as much as you want, as long as you have the resources. So Fet's Fire Spray works exceedingly well with commands because you can ramp and get Boba Fett out faster and then Fire Spray out faster. And then you have all these resources before your opponent that you can start spending into the Fire Spray to exhaust all their, strongest things. And now you've got bodies on the board, you've got leaders on the board, all their stuff is getting tapped down, feels really bad, and you're just laughing because, you're just evil. So Fet's Fire Spray is a card you can absolutely build around. If you get Fet's Fire Spray and you don't get Boba, it's still good. It's not as good. It's perfectly fine, but this card really excels if you have Boba Fett in the deck, especially as a leader. That's really where this card shines. But again, if you pull it as a rare, I don't see why you couldn't build around it. It's just not as efficient. So you have to take that into account depending on what you pull. Lando Calrissian Saboteur, you can return up to 2 friendly resources to their owner's hands. Sure, I'm not jamming on this. Change of Heart. I do like this card. It is expensive. So you take control of a non-leader unit at the start of the regroup phase. Its owner takes control of it. So this is a good card to steal something and then crash it into the opponent, and it defeats itself and the thing it crashes into. It is an expensive card. It, as a 6-cost. Does it get the job done? Yes. Are there other cards I would prefer to have? Yes. This is absolutely in my 29-30 card slot where I need to fill in a gap. I'm pretty sure some people would disagree with me, but I like Change of Heart. I've used it, I've played it. It can be impactful, but after dropping it for other things like the Bounty Hunter Crew or ATST, these feel way more impactful on the board than stealing something from my opponent. But if my opponent has a ton of cards, stealing something is fine. If they have a unit that's got a ton of upgrades and experience tokens and things, that does feel good to steal it and then use it against them. So it just depends. Change of Heart is kind of mid. I would say it's in that 29-30 slot where you put it in, but you don't build around it necessarily. And then ATST, this is just a super impactful neutral villain card. 6-cost, villain only, ground unit, no color coding, and then it's a 6/7 overwhelm. It's above rate. 6-7 is hard to deal with. It's just nuts. If you don't have like direct removal that just gets rid of this, like Vanquish, this is going to stay on the board for a long time. If they're just, ooh, this card's hard. This card is really, really fun. It's a great 6-drop. It's scary. It's powerful. It's hard to deal with. Overwhelm really does matter because you can swing this into stuff smaller than it. You defeat a unit and you deal damage to a base. If your opponent tries to swing back, they usually die, and the ATST may or may not even like get defeated at the same time. So this is one of the scariest 6-drops you could possibly get. If you've got green ramp in command and you've got an ATST, absolutely play this card. Like if you're playing Villainy at all, this is a card you should absolutely put into your deck. You can build around trying to get out faster and just scare your opponent to death with such a monstrous body. But that's it for 6-drops. Let's move on to 7. Scooting along here, there's not very many cards, but boy, some of these are really impactful. Okay, first up, Count Dooku, one of my favorite cards in the entire game. 7 cost, Vigilance, Blue, and Villainy. 5/4, shielded. When played, you may defeat a unit with 4 or less remaining HP. So here's the sitch. This is a card I absolutely would build around in Villainy Blue for a few reasons. One, it's got removal on a stick, so when you play it, you could just defeat a unit with 4 or less remaining HP, which is very doable. And that also includes leaders. Dun dun dun. So that's just disgusting. Secondly, he is shielded, so he's going to get attacked, or he's going to attack. The first time he swings or something swings into him, he takes 0 damage. Perfectly fine. And then 5 attack is scary. That's a lot of damage. No joke. Very potent. Dooku can remove. He's usually a 2-for-1, where you play him and defeat a unit. Then either your opponent swings into him to get rid of the shield and that unit gets defeated, or he swings into something and defeats it and loses the shield. Like, Dooku has a lot of value for 7. He's a great card to build around. He is a rare, so he's a little bit easier to pull than some of the cards we're about to talk about. But if you see a Count Dooku and you're playing and your cards are kind of leaning into the villainy with blue, I think you should absolutely put him in your deck. A very good card. Speaking of blue, but heroism, let's talk about the legendary Luke Skywalker. These next couple cards are actually cards you should try to build around because they're that powerful. So 7 cost, heroism, vigilance blue, 6/7, restore 3. Oh my gosh, that is insane. But wait, there's more. Tell me more, tell me more. So when played, give an enemy unit -3/-3 for this phase. And remember magic rules, if their HP drops to 0 or below, they are defeated. If a friendly unit was defeated this phase, give that enemy unit -6/-6 for this phase instead. So what a lot of people like to do is take a unit that is damaged and is going to die anyways, crash it into somebody, and defeat your own unit, plus maybe potentially taking out one of your enemy's units. Then you play Luke Skywalker, and because a friendly unit was defeated in this phase, you get to put -6/-6 on an enemy unit, and that's ground unit, space unit, leader unit. -6/-6 can defeat a lot of things, and I'm like, there's a lot. Like, you can get rid of Han Solo, you can get rid of Count Dooku, you can get rid of Boba Fett. There's a bajillion things you can use this to just vaporize right off the bat. On top of that, you have restore 3 and a 6/7 body. So your stat line is very strong. And when you attack, you heal 3 damage off your base. This card is great. If you see a legendary Luke Skywalker, unless you get a legendary Vader, which we're about to talk about, I really think you should try and build around this card, because if he hits the table, you probably are going to win the game. He's just so hard to deal with because there's just not a good direct way to deal with him without multiple cards, multiple pieces, multiple tools. And even if you do get rid of Luke, restore 3 is nuts. If he gets to attack twice, healing 6 off of your base, that is an insane amount of damage. That extends your base from 30 to 36 or 25 to 31. Huge. Like, Luke swinging twice is ungodly. It's just really, really stupid. You've probably won the game at that point, because if you swing into a base, you've done 12 damage and healed 6 off of yours. There's just no way you're coming back from that if you're on the other end of Luke. So yeah, if you find him, if you pull him, build around this card. Luke is super, super good. And next up, Big Brother Vader. He is kind of nutty. Shout out to Jeremy Zorn. He actually designed this, loves this card, and I like talking to him about it. So this is a 7-cost Darth Vader, villainy, green command, 5/7, ambush. So you slap him on the board and you just start punching people. But the cool ability is, when played, search the top 10 cards of your deck for any number of villainy units with combined cost 3 or less and play each of them for free. Wow, what were they thinking? So not only does Darth Vader come in swinging like a wrecking ball, but you also get to search the top 10 cards of your deck and play any number of them as long as they are a combined total of cost 3 or less. And then there are a couple rules here on the website. So after searching, put any cards not chosen on the bottom of your deck in a random order. For abilities that encompass multiple actions, resolve each action sequentially. Play for free ignores all resource costs, including the aspect penalty, but not other additional costs, which means like when a card says when played, bounce a card back to your hand, or yada yada, so on and so forth. So you can ignore resource costs, including aspect penalty. I wouldn't do that, but I'm just saying like you can do that. So Vader essentially comes in, swings, and then he can bring 1 body that costs 3, or 2 bodies that cost 1 and 2, or 3 bodies that each cost 1. You're just getting value out of this card. Again, this is a card you should build around. If you pull a Darth Vader, start looking through your villainy, start looking through your command cards. If you can get him on the board and you can like build a deck that actually works around this card, you are probably going to win the game. He's kind of nuts. Next up is U-Wing Reinforcement. Here's another card that's very interesting. It's a 7-cost command hero. Search the top 10 cards of your deck for up to 3 units with combined cost 7 or less and play each of them for free. And then we have some rules clarifications. So play for free ignores all resource costs. After searching, you put any cards not chosen on the bottom of your deck in a random order. It's basically just like Vader. But the thing is, you search the top 10 cards of your deck, which is a third of your deck. You only have 30 cards, or you could put more, I guess, but you're going to play 30 cards for 3 units, space or ground, with a combined cost of 7 or less. So essentially, you play U-Wing Reinforcement to search the top third of your deck for 7 resources worth of units and just play them on the field. This is a very potent card. If you're playing in green heroism command, I really think you should play this card. You could do so much. Now, obviously, you do want to try and hit that sweet spot of 7. You don't want to play 6 or 5 because you're losing resources. But the thing is, you still get to look at the top 10 cards of your deck. You get to see what's coming. And usually your decks are pretty unit heavy. You might have a couple events in those 10, but I'm willing to bet like 6 to 7 of those cards probably are units. And you get to play them for free. So you get to dig. It's essentially a mini searcher. So you dig through 10, pick up to 7, play them for free, boom. Lots of value. I think this card is very playable, very build-aroundable, and it just works. It functions so incredibly well for what you're trying to do. Next up, this one's easy. 97th Legion, 7 cost, green, 0/0. It gets +1/+1 for each resource you control, so it's a 7/7 for 7. And then if you have an 8th resource, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. This is definitely one of the filler cards. This is probably your 29th or 30th card slot. If you just don't have anything better to play, it works. It's on curve and it just grows, but it's not like a frontliner. Mace Windu, here is something I think would be a good frontliner. Shout out to Jay from Unplayable. I know Mace Windu is his boy, and I'm on board with this. So Mace Windu is a 7-cost hero, aggression, 5/7 body with ambush. And then when this unit attacks and defeats a unit, ready him. So you're going to want to play Mace Windu, swing into somebody, defeat him, and then untap Mace so you can do it again. and then again, and then again. And your opponent has to answer this Mace Windu, otherwise he's just gonna keep swinging into things, defeating them, and untapping and doing it again. He has enough power to take out most things, and he has enough HP to survive probably a combined attack and defend of like 3 interactions if done appropriately. So like you swing him into something smaller mid-range, he untaps, your opponent might choose to attack him, and then he attacks into one other thing, crashes, they both die, they both get defeated. So Mace Windu can get a lot of value. If you have Sentinel on the board, Mace Windu gets a insane amount of value because he can attack, defeat, untap, attack, defeat, untap. He can just kind of go through whatever he wants to. So the trick is with Mace going into sealed, will you get to turn 7 playing aggression? And that's the big question. Probably not. This is obviously a good card, and you probably are, you're only going to pull 1 unless, again, you have just the nuts draw and you pull 2. I would probably say safely put 1 Mace Windu into your 30 card deck, just because if you somehow get to turn 7, he can help kind of, you know, get you going, winning the game. But you're probably going to want to prioritize like low to the ground, high impact, high damage bodies if you're playing in aggression hero, because you're probably trying to search for that Sabine leader so you can just punch your opponent right in the face. But I would play 1 copy of Mace Windu inside of a red deck just in case you get to the long term, because a Mace Windu can absolutely swing the course of the game in your favor and just win you the game. So yeah, super good card. I love it. I had no choice. Whatever, I'm not jamming on this card. Han Solo, here's an interesting card I do think could see play. 7 cost, heroism, cunning, 6/6 ambush. While attacking, this unit deals combat damage before the defender. So Han Solo essentially has first strike in magic terms. He attacks with ambush, he deals 6 damage, and then if you survive, you get to deal damage back. Super easy. So there's not too terribly much to say here. There's a couple rules clarifications. So if the defender is defeated by Han Solo's combat damage, it does not deal combat damage back. If it survives and has grit, it deals bonus damage from grit when dealing combat damage back. Ambush is an ability that triggers at the same time as when played abilities. If there's no enemy unit that can be attacked, this unit is not ready. And then combat damage is the only damage dealt during the deal combat damage step of an attack. So essentially, you want to slap down Han Solo, swing him into someone, defeat him, and take no damage in return. Again, if you're playing the mid-range, this is good. If you're playing aggro, the game is probably over by the time Han would come out, potentially. We'll see. But it's a good card, nonetheless. If you're playing in yellow and you pull a Han, this is definitely a card you should and can build around in Heroism Yellow, just because he's great. Being able to get first strike is good. A 6/6 is good. Ambush is good. There's nothing wrong with this card. On defense, he's a 6/6 with no abilities. On offense, he gets 6 attack, first strike. Go for it. Absolutely. If you pull this card, worth building around. A Galactic Ambition, probably not. It's, you know, play a unit, deal damage to your base. I don't love it. So I don't think this is a rare you want to build around. I could be totally wrong. I'm just not jamming on the fact it's a 7 cost in villain. Play a non-hero unit from your hand for free, but deal damage to your base equal to its cost. So like, here's the thing. If you have a 7 cost card, you're probably going to pay for the 7 cost card and not deal damage to your base. If you have a card that costs more, 8, 9, do you really want to deal 8 or 9 damage to your base? I mean, if it comes into play on tap, sure, but we're going to look at these next cards, and I don't think this has any really good application in sealed. We'll see. Like I said, I could be totally wrong. I don't jam on this card at all. But yeah, those are the 7 cost cards. Let's move into the 8 drops. And again, there's not many to talk about, so this is going to be a lot of fun because some of these are really impactful. Okay, right off the bat, before we keep going, I do want to say that it's not uncommon to hit 8 resources. However, generally on the turn you hit 8 or more resources, that's kind of the turn you're going to win or you're going to lose. So there's an interesting perspective to look at these cards, an interesting lens, and that's going to be, is this card going to help me win the game right now? And that's kind of where I'm coming from for rating these cards. In Constructed, it's a totally different discussion, but in Sealed, the games just don't go super long. You would think because the card pool is limited and your pull rate is limited, you would hit turns, where you're hitting 8, 9, 10 resources. But the reality is you probably will hit 7 or 8 resources. The issue isn't the resource number. The issue is there's enough stuff on the board to kill you. So if you're going to play an 8 drop, it needs to keep you alive or stop the opponent from killing you, because they've got enough units in space on the ground that after like 2 attacks, your base is destroyed. So coming from that perspective, let's talk about AT-AT Suppressor. This is a card I have used, I have played, and I have won because of this ability. So 8 cost, Villainy, Vigilance, 8/8. When played, exhaust all ground units. If you've got a couple units in space to like poke your opponent and win the game, and they've got a heavy ground game, Suppressor can win you the game because you slam this down as fast as you can, you exhaust all of their ground units, and now you're going to use your space units to win the game. It's good-ish. This is a card you probably slot in if you're playing a slower control deck. If you're trying to play aggro or like quick kind of smaller bodies that do poke damage, Suppressor is okay. This is a very okay card. I don't love it, I don't hate it. It gets the job done, but it's very situational. Super Laser Blast is kind of in that same vein. It's a Wrath of God, it's 8 cost, Villainy, Vigilance, defeat all units. If you get to the point where this is what you got to play, if you're playing control deck, it works. If you're playing anything else, you might have had a bad day. So in control decks, this is a good card. In all other decks, I don't know, maybe. Again, usually the game is over at this point. If you want to reset, that's fine. The biggest problem is, if you play this on turn 8, your opponent generally still has 8 resources to fiddle with, and they're just going to play a bunch of units. You go to the next turn, your board is empty, and their board has bodies that can still kill you again. So in Constructed, I think it's playable. In Limited, it's really tricky. I don't love it. I like it, but I don't love it. It's I don't know. Redemption, all these cards kind of fall in the same place. So Redemption is a 6/9 ship space unit for 8 resources in Heroism Vigilance with Sentinel. That is good. But again, unless your opponent is going to kill you with space units, it's fine. Now, the second ability is really where this card shines. This card I do like at the 8 drop for heroes. So when played, heal up to 8 total damage from any number of units and or bases. Deal that much damage to this unit. So if this card gets played, I saw it played once, you immediately heal 8 damage off of the base, put it on Redemption, and then your opponent swings into the Redemption. It dies, but at 6 strength, you're probably going to take down whatever swings into it, so that's totally fine. Fair trade, but you're paying 8 resources to heal 8 damage and drop a body. Totally fair trade. That is a swing worth 8 resources. If you see this card and you're playing blue hero, I do think this is worth putting in, because if for some reason you get to turn 8, healing 8 damage is a lot more than people think. It's like, oh, 8 damage, that's pretty good. Yeah, 8 damage can stall you out long enough that you could win the game because your opponent doesn't have enough reach to kill you anymore. Plus, the Sentinel really does matter, because not only is the Redemption going to defeat a unit on average in combat, but it also reduces an attack option into your base. So if your opponent has, say, 2 space units, one of them has to attack into the Redemption and the other one gets to deal damage to the base. That cuts the damage output by, who knows? It could be significant, it could be a little bit, but you're reducing the damage taken. So you're healing 8 and you're reducing a minimum of 1. So realistically, you stopped 9 damage from coming into your base. If you're playing a 30 HP base, that's almost a third of your base. If they attack and if all their like space units have 2 or 3 attack, that number just goes up to I healed 8 damage and I reduced incoming damage by 2 or 3. That's a 10-point swing. Very, very, very good. So yeah, Redemption I would put into the deck if you're playing blue. Blizzard, it's a 9/9 for 8 with if this unit deals. I don't think so. I don't think this is the card you want to play at turn 8 in Villainy to win you the game. I just don't feel it. Home 1, here's an interesting one. Heroes actually have a majority of the good, like somewhat game-changing-ish cards depending on how the game state looks. So Home 1 is a 7/7 body for 8 resources in Heroism and Green Command. It, as a card, has Restore 2. Each other friendly unit gains Restore 1. And when played, play a Heroism unit from your discard pile. It costs 3 resources less. So Home 1 has Restore. It gives Restore to each other friendly unit. Doesn't matter what the unit is, it's just anything on your board has Restore 1. And you get to play a hero unit from your discard pile at a 3 resource reduction. This card is good if you're able to get the Restore off. If you're about to die and your opponent has lethal on board, this is not the card you want because it's not helping you win. Now, if your opponent has exact lethal, so say for example you have like 6 health left and your opponent has 2 units that each deal 3 damage. Home 1 can stall the game because you play Home 1, your opponent attacks with a unit for 3, you have 3 health left, you attack with any unit and you use Restore 1 to heal damage off your base, and now you're outside of lethal range because your opponent only can deal 3 damage, but you have 4 health left. So in certain mathematical situations, this can potentially work, but it's not the swing that you want compared to, say, Redemption, that just heals damage and is a Sentinel. So Home 1 can be good, not as good as Redemption, but playable. Reinforcement Walker, when played or on attack, look at the top card of your deck, either draw it or discard it and heal 3 damage from your base. Kind of. I mean, it's a 6/9, 8 cost Green Command card that can go into hero or villain, which I think is funny that heroes can play this card because I'm pretty sure this is a villain card from Rogue One, but you know, so be it. I'm totally cool with some flexibility here. So yeah, when you play the Reinforcement Walker, you basically discard a card to heal 3 damage from your base. You get to do it every time you attack, but again, we're looking for impactful 8 drops that can stop you from losing the game or help you win the game. And I don't know if this is that card. It's kind of impactful, but I don't know if it's like super impactful. I'm mid. I don't think this is really what you want. Maybe a 30th card slot. It's in the 29, 20, 30 maybe. I don't know, but I'm not loving it. Emperor Palpatine. This is an interesting one. So it's an 8 cost heroism. No, what am I saying? Emperor Palpatine is not a hero. He's a villain of the Empire. So he's an 8 cost villain aggression red, 6 attack, 6 HP, overwhelm. Really what you're paying for is when played, deal 6 damage divided as you choose among enemy units. Okay. Here's a tricky thing. The 6 damage you divided can be incredibly impactful because you could knock out 2 or 3 units on your opponent's side, and if they thought they had lethal to win the game, they probably don't anymore. On top of that, you still have your board state. So Emperor Palpatine is like a little mini removal spell where he's a 6/6 body that also deals 6 damage across the board as you pick. So he can do a lot of things to slow the opponent down, build momentum, and potentially win you the game. So I do like Emperor Palpatine. Again, we're looking through the lens of, at 8 resources, is this going to win the game or stop my opponent from winning the game and set me up for success? I think Palpatine can do such a thing. He's tricky, but if you have red aggression and you've got an extra slot, I really think this is probably like a wave 2 pick. Like you pick your bombs, you pick your threats, you pick your primary cards in the colors you want, and then now you're looking for cards to fill out the rest of the deck. I think Emperor Palpatine fills that pretty well here in Villain. And then the last card is Chimera. This is a tricky one. So it's an 8 cost villainy cunning yellow card. The body is 8 attack, 7 HP, shielded. That's nice. And then on attack, this is the problem. On attack, name a card an opponent reveals their hand and discards a card with that name from it. So the Chimera comes in tapped. So you don't get the Chimera ability until the next turn. Then you get to start potentially stripping cards out of their hand. Now, a body that's 8/7 shielded is no joke. This thing, you can crash right into their base, and then the opponent is going to have to try and take out the Chimera, and the first attack shield blocks everything, and then 8/7, very little can stand up to a Chimera without dying itself. So this thing is going to take out a lot of problems and deal damage and potentially strip a card out of your opponent's hand. The only problem, like I keep saying, is once you get to 8 resources, you're generally on the verge of the game being over, generally. Chimera can do a couple things here. So here's where Chimera gets good. Yellow, like we said, has a lot of disruption. So you have tools to bounce things, you have tools to tap things, you have all kinds of tools to just annoy the opponent. That's good. I think Chimera could also potentially work with green, with command, if you're ramping. So you might have 8 resources while your opponent has 7 resources. And Chimera coming out can be scary. Palpatine coming out can be scary. Being able to ramp in green villain really gives you the edge to get to these bigger bodies faster. And that's the point where you can start really trying to pressure your opponent with a Chimera a turn or two. Because like say you get resupply and DJ super laser, you might have 8 resources on board while your opponent only has 6. And at that point, Chimera really slaps. All of these cards can hurt really bad if you're able to ramp up. If you're just hard casting them at 8, the conversation is a much, much more difficult conversation. But a 8/7 shielded body, plus the disruption of yellow, and if you're playing some control tools in any other color, you might be able to slow the game down long enough where Chimera could be good. So I would say this is definitely a card you can build around if you can ramp into it or slow the opponent down. If you don't have any good removal tools and you don't have any ramp, I would probably look for some more impactful cards at a lower rate than Chimera, because I just don't know if you're going to get long enough into the game where this is going to matter. So give or take, it might be playable, but that's the 8 drops. Let's look at the 9s and then the 10s, and we're done. We're almost there, everybody. We're so close. Wait, are there only 2 cards at 9? What's the 10 cost? There's no 10 cost. I didn't think so. All right, last 2 cards, and then we're going to wrap this video up super quick. Okay, so the 9 cost cards are going to go through the exact same filter as the 8s, and that is, does this card help me win the game? Avenger, villainy, heroism. No, what am I? I'm so, my brain. Villainy, vigilance. That's what I'm looking for. So blue. The body is 8/8, and the ability is when played and on attack, an opponent chooses a non-leader unit they control, defeat that unit. Is it good? This is tricky. So in Constructed, there's ways to get this card out a lot faster using green. And at that point, if you can play Avenger like 2 resources earlier, even 3 resources earlier. So say you play a 9 cost card when your opponent only has 6 resources. That is oppressive. But we're talking about sealed here. So this is where things get kind of spicy. Can you get this body, can you get this space unit out early? In green, you can. Also, if you're playing blue and villainy, you have access to a lot of removal. So you have maximum firepower, which we talked about, takedown, vanquish, make away, you know, the -2, -2. There's a lot of things you can bring to the table that can keep your opponent offline. However, this allows the opponent to choose a non-leader they control and defeat it. So they're going to get rid of their worst unit. So that doesn't help you very much. Also, it comes into play exhausted, so you have to wait until the next turn to attack. Now we're getting to a sticky part, because the game is probably super over at that point. Like, unless your opponent just like drew horribly, or you drew all the control. There's a lot of different permutations of things where it could work, but it probably doesn't. So is Avenger good? Yes. Will you actually play Avenger? I don't know. It depends on what you pull. It depends on so many things. So if I had to be really, really honest, this is probably like your 30th or 31st card. You probably aren't building around it. It's also a legendary, so it's harder to pull. You're probably not frontlining it, because you're probably not going to get to a point where you're going to be able to play this and win. However, if you do have just a really aggressive control package, or you have a really aggressive ramp package with command cards, like if you pull like 2 waylays and 3 DJ super lasers, like not waylay, resupply, by all means, you have a pretty good chance of getting 1 to 2 resources up over your opponent. And at that point, you could drop Avenger at 9 while your opponent is sitting on 7. That's impactful. That's actually very impactful. So if you have the right set of cards, yes. If you only have blue and then another color, not green, I don't think Avenger sees play. I really don't. It's just too slow. You're probably not going to get that deep. You could play it for fun. I don't feel good saying that this is a quality card to build around at 9. Like, if you're hard casting at 9, I really think the game is probably over, especially since a lot of people are going to be running towards very aggressive decks with Boba Fett, Leia, Organa, and Sabine Wren. You're probably never going to get to 9 resources if you're playing against one of those aggressive decks. So not feeling it so much. And then Relentless feels the same exact way. It's 9 cost, villainy, command, 8/8. The first event played by each opponent, each round loses all abilities. The only reason why I feel a little bit better about this card is because it's in green, which has the ramp tools. So you're in the color that can speed out more resources. So very likely, if you're playing in command, you probably have some ramp tools to get this out faster. So if you could get this out when your opponent has 7 resources, I think that's well worth it. Not because of the body, but because now your opponent's events are basically turned off. The first one they play is blanked. So if they have removal, it doesn't do anything. If they have combat tricks, it doesn't do anything. They have to expend 2 cards and resources to pay for both of those cards to get the second effect to go off. Again, this probably won't see play because of how many resources and the fact you have to draw it. So you have to see it, you have to have the resources for it. A lot of things have to kind of fall into place for this to work. If you can get it out, sure. This is probably your 30th card slot. So if you just don't have anything else better to play, Relentless works because you can also use it as a resource and boom, you're fine. But honestly, it's probably not going to happen. But if I had to pick of the 2, Relentless is probably the better just because it blanks out events, and in green, you have a higher propensity of seeing this come to play. But yeah, that's it. We just went through every single card in every single value. Obviously, we didn't do every individual card. That would have taken another day. But that is the penultimate guide on what you should be looking for. And again, I want to express this is my opinion. I am not the best player in the world. I've got plenty of games under my belt, but I also like to play Control. I like to play weird games. I like to play fun decks. I like to do things a little bit differently than the average, meta player, because I like to just kind of play my own game and have fun. So I like to also look at cards through that lens of how can I make this card fun? How can I make this card viable? What can I do to just have a good time with what's available in this card pool. So thank you so much for watching. If you've watched all the way through, please like, subscribe, share, and follow TCG Cast. We are working very hard to create very fun content for players of all ages and experience. If you're a casual player, we'd love to have you. If you're a competitive player, we'd love to have you. If you're a collector, if you want to play with your friends or your family or loved ones, we don't really mind any single person. We want everyone to be able to sit back, relax, enjoy our content, enjoy the card games we're talking about, and play games and have just a ton of fun as they're doing it. So thank you so much for joining us. My name is Sugi, and as always, remember, may the force be with you.